Cardinals visiting Miller Park this afternoon. We'll look back to 1982 in a matchup between these two in the Fall Classic. The problem for the Brewers is that's the last time they've seen a postseason. But changes are afoot in the land of the Brats. We'll meet the new skipper, Ned Yost, who's looking to take a page from good friend Dale Earnhardt. And we'll get up close with new Brewer GM Doug Melvin. Plus, a visit from Mr. Baseball himself, new Hall of Famer Bob Uecker. It's all coming up on ESPN Day Game next. Here on ESPN, Miller Park is our home in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, as the Cardinals and Brewers complete their series this afternoon. Here's the lineup Tony La Russa will send out against Ned Yost Brewers. A little bit of a makeshift lineup. He's got Cairo and Marrero in the outfield, and then Pujols will be in the lineup today, but he's a little banged up. And welcome to our broadcast, Gary Miller and Jeff Brantley. Pleased to welcome you to game day. And Jeff, we didn't know if Pujols would start or not today. He got hit in the first game of this series by Curtis Leskonic, but that's not his only injury woe.
Well, he's got a little bit of problem with his right elbow, too. But you look at this lineup, and there are some unfamiliar names. But that's the one strength of this St. Louis ball club, is the fact that they have some depth off the bench. Every manager would love to be able to have a bench like Tony La Russa's got, so that when he does have to give Jim Edmonds or one of his other starters a day off, he's got a guy like Eli Marrero, and he doesn't lose much in the lineup. That's the big thing, to be able to be successful every single day for the whole season, to be able to have some guys off the bench, give them some ABs, get them out there, and get them playing.
Apparently the word hasn't gone out to the fans. Maybe they can count the Brewers as part of the attendance here this afternoon. But they got their first home victory last night. Pretty big deal for Ned Yost, who got his first win after 6 losses. So it's been kind of a learning experience for the new skipper here.
Well, it's the best part of this ball club, and he's got some young pitchers. Wayne Franklin's on the mound this afternoon, and this guy's got to learn how to pitch. He's got a good arm, and it's very similar to the rest of the guys on the staff. They've got to learn how to pitch, not just go out there and throw, and that's the big thing that Wayne Franklin's going to have to do today against this lineup, because he's got to be able to change speeds. He throws a little bit unconventional. He likes to get a lot of ground balls, and that's part of what this defense is going to help him with. Royce Clayton is the shortstop, came over from the Chicago White Sox. These guys can catch the ball, and they're going to have to with Wayne Franklin today. But the biggest thing about Royce Clayton right now is he's swinging probably the hottest bat on this ball club. Big change for Royce Clayton. Always been a guy that could pick it. A little bit different on the offensive side, but right now he's taking care of it.
Didn't expect Royce Clayton, who homered last night, then got followed by a home run by Richie Sexton. So they're tied for the Brewers' lead with 4 home runs, but that's not why they have Royce Clayton here instead of Jose Hernandez.
Well, Royce Clayton is a guy he's going to give you some solid defense. And last year for the White Sox, they wanted an offensive shortstop. Well, Royce Clayton is not a guy that's going to hit 30 home runs a year, but he's not going to hurt you at shortstop. I mean, the guy can catch the ball, he can pick it, he plays the game the way it's supposed to be played, and he gives you a good clubhouse presence. We were talking with Ned Yost before the ball game. This is a totally different clubhouse this year than what it has been in the past, and to me, that's a big key to winning.
We saw Hunter Wendelstedt will be behind the plate today. Larry Young, Charlie Relaford, and Mike Everett around the bases. Ned Yost in his first season as Brewers manager, 5-9, as we mentioned. They got their first home win last night. They'll try to take 2 out of 3 from one of the favorites in the Central Division if they can win this afternoon. You know, you talk about Franklin getting a lot of balls and playing a lot of ground balls, although when he was in the Houston organization last year, Jeff, led the league in strikeouts. Kind of surprising with the kind of stuff he has.
Well, he's unconventional. And by that, I mean he throws a little bit leaning over towards the first base side. He comes at an angle to home plate, and really pitching is about creating angles and changing speeds and moving the ball from one side to the other. And I think that's part of what he's having to learn. And Mike Maddox, the pitching coach for the Brewers, I talked with him a little bit before the ball game, and that's really the message that he's trying to send to his pitchers. This is not about how hard you can throw and how great your breaking ball is. It's about changing speeds and moving the ball from one side to the other, and that's what gets hitters out.
He's got a guy he's familiar with behind the plate today for Franklin, Eddie Perez, who was with Ned when he was the third base coach with the Atlanta Braves. We're just about ready to get started here at Miller Park on game day. Wayne Franklin coming off a pretty impressive outing for his first win of the year, beat Randy Johnson. First pitch to Miguel Cairo is low.
When you're standing in the box as a right-handed batter and you see a pitcher like Franklin come almost from the second base area as far as his angle when he brings the ball to the plate, it makes it difficult to pick up the ball early, and that's what Franklin has got to capitalize on.
Miguel Cairo gets ahead in the count 2-0. He made a name for himself in the postseason last year when Rolen came up with that shoulder injury. Miguel filled in very well at third base, and today he's in left field.
Well, there's quite a few guys besides Cairo. I mean, Eli Marrero plays all over the field, and that's part of what you've got to be able to do. That makes your value much greater as a bench player to be able to play different positions. If you can play the outfield, first base, maybe a middle infield spot, and catch all at the same time, you're pretty much guaranteed a spot on a roster.
Very valuable player, Miguel Cairo. And he's watching and waiting for Franklin to throw a strike here. He's ahead in the count 3-1. So Tony La Russa's had to do a lot of adjusting, but he's glad to have Pujols getting the cleanup spot today because Jim Edmonds and Tino Martinez are out of the lineup today, and Cairo draws the leadoff walk.
And if you look at this ball club, you wonder, how does Tony sleep at night knowing that the injuries just seem to keep coming? I know he was holding his breath the other day when Pujols got hit in the hand with a baseball, and the thing about it is you want to be able to give your guys a day off, but you don't want to have them have the day off because they're hurt. And this ball club is and Tony's very fortunate that he's got some guys that can step in like Cairo and Marrero and be able to play some different positions and fill in some spots and give some of the everyday players a day off.
Yeah, not a lot of guys in the league that could catch and play center field.
Yeah, not with that kind of speed.
Franklin starts off with a strike this time in Marrero.
And actually, if you're looking at Eli Marrero and where he can play and what he can do, he came up as a catcher, but they signed Joe Girardi during the offseason to basically be the #2 catcher. And
another guy who's hurt.
Exactly, and that's another situation. It's a guy that, you know, he's very valuable to this ball club because he can play all over the place.
Fouls that one away. Noticed Cairo getting back to the bag as he's trying to pick out Franklin's move.
Well, a lot of times early in the ball game, especially with a left-handed pitcher, you want to be able to get a lead off of first base large enough so that you cause a move to first base, so the guys on your team and in your dugout can actually see his move to first base. You may lead off an extra foot or two simply to be able to draw the throw, and on first move you're going back to the bag so that you can actually see what his move looks like.
2-strike count here. Any chance that Cairo could be on the move?
Well, I think the thing for Tony right now, especially because Franklin is all over the place, he's probably just wanting to play it a little conservative early. You got a young pitcher on the mound. I'm sure from Tony's perspective, he's saying, let's make this guy throw some strikes early and see if we can get our first couple of guys on. You get guys on ahead of Rolen and Pujols. You've got some action early.
Especially you got Matt Morris on the mound for your side. You're not going to need a whole lot today, you wouldn't think. 1-2 pitch to Marrero. Cairo stays and he strikes him out. So Franklin comes back. Had 141 strikeouts last year for the Astros AAA affiliate before he got traded from Mark Loretta.
That pitch is down and in to Marrero, and we talk about the angles, and you think this is a straight fastball. How in the world do you miss this? Well, the angle that it's coming in from is much different. It almost has the perception from the hitter's standpoint that this is a slider coming at me, and it has that type of velocity. Very difficult to hit when you create those types of angles on the mound. Brings up Scotty Rolen.
Franklin starts him out with the ball, so started 2 of the first 3 batters that way. So Rolen looks down to Jose Akendo in the third base coaching box. Just under 300. He's knocked in 11 with 3 home runs so far in the first 2 weeks plus of the season. Now Franklin finally throws over. Franklin's success is going to be determined by how many times he can throw his changeup for a strike or get a swing on his changeup. He's able to throw his fastball for a strike, and he can create that inside angle coming from second base and throwing that pitch inside just like he did to Marrero to strike him out. But his biggest key is going to be being able to make the hitter swing or attack his changeup, because that's going to be his best pitch. Evens the count at 1-1. Franklin did pitch against St. Louis in their earlier meeting at Busch Stadium, but that was in relief. He's now part of the rotation here in Milwaukee. Well, you'd like to have as many left-handers in that rotation as you can, simply because there's just not that many of them out there. Not many at all in this division either. Especially a young left-hander that can have 3 pitches, a breaking ball, a changeup, and a fastball that gives you some unconventional look from the mound. But the biggest thing, though, Gary, is he's got to throw some strikes. Carver with a little bigger lead, but he stays. Franklin misses up in the zone, 2-2. It is kind of amazing, you know, Jimmy Anderson of the Reds. I mean, Estes just signed with the Cubs this offseason. Not many lefties at all in the Central Division. Left-handed pitching is a valuable commodity simply because there's not that much quality. Rolen gives it a ride to center. Sanchez Looks up. Out of here. A 2-run first inning homer as Rolen speeds around the bases.
The one thing about Scott Rolen is you definitely have to keep him off stride, and you want to make him swing early in the count simply so he doesn't get to see so many pitches. And you'll see the first pitch there is a changeup on the outside part of the plate, comes back with a fastball for a strike. High fastball. Rolen swings through, then he tries to come in. Well, he leaves this changeup on the plate, and it's not a bad pitch, but as a hitter, you've seen 4 consecutive fastballs, and the last one was at your letters. You've got to believe that he's going to try to come back with something off speed away, and Rolen was right on it.
His 4th home run of the year gives him 13 RBIs, and now Albert Pujols pulls one into the left field corner. It's fair. That'll bounce into the corner, and Albert's digging for a stand-up double.
That pitch from Franklin right there, he's trying to get a fastball in on Pujols. He just didn't get it in enough. See Pujols pull his hands in. He didn't look like he was suffering from any effects of getting hit by that baseball the other night.
6 total bases in the last couple of swings. So Tony La Russa happy to have Albert in his lineup today. That was a batting practice decision. You could see the big swelling on his hand, and as you mentioned, he's also got some elbow tenderness. Now Eduardo Perez, who homered last night.
The one thing about Albert Pujols is he wants to be in the lineup every day. He wants to play the game. He wants to be out there, and sometimes from a manager's perspective, you have to temper that a little bit to try to make sure that you keep your big horses healthy. But you want guys like him and Scott Rolen who want to be out there every day. Those are the kind of guys that really make your ball club run like a smooth-oiled machine.
Talked to Albert before the game. He got off to kind of a slow start, and he said Perez is popped high. Clayton going back. Jenkins comes in under the roof. Closed today as the weather has changed drastically here in Milwaukee. They had record temperatures on Monday and Tuesday in the mid-80s. I couldn't believe it when I got off the plane here. And then the middle of the game last night, Clayton hits a home run, and it must have brought the weather with it. The temperature dropped 30 degrees.
Yeah, now we're back to reality.
Yeah. This is the clothes we brought.
April in Milwaukee. Now imagine if we were at County Stadium right now.
Oh.
Need an overcoat.
Some gloves. Edgar Renteria off to a good start at 333. Starts him off with a strike. Finish that thought on Albert. He got off to kind of a slow start, and he said, look, I know I'm going to get 550 more at bats. I've only had about 40. I'm going to hit 300. And that's what he's put up every year now.
No panic.
2 years.
No panic. When you watch Renteria take that slider on the inside part of the play, what he's looking for is a ball that's middle away that he can drive into the right center field gap. And what that allows him to do is take the fastball the other way and allows him to stay back on the breaking ball. And that's why he's such a good breaking ball hitter, because he looks for the ball away.
Gets it way in on Edgar Renteria.
A lot of young pitchers, Gary, will make the mistake that when they do come in on hitters and knowing that they can get them out in, they try to drive the ball too far in. As we've seen these last 2 pitches from Franklin to Renteria, he knows he needs to get him out inside, but a strike on the inside part of the plate to a guy that you're trying to get out is the pitch that you want to make.
Throws it out. Renteria taps out the second, so he ends up throwing 23 pitches in the first inning. The worst one was a home run ball to Scott Rolen. Cards up 2-0. Welcome back to Day Game here on ESPN. Scott Rolen's 2-run homer has staked Matt Morris to a 2-0 lead as Milwaukee comes up for the first time this afternoon here at Miller Park. Here's the lineup that Ned Yost will throw at the ace of the Cardinals staff. Sanchez in center, Young, Sexton, Jenkins, Vanderwall starting in right field tonight. Jeff Hammond's got hurt last night. He's on the DL. Then it's Helms, Perez, Clayton, and Franklin.
Love to watch Matt Morris pitch. This guy is the ultimate gamer. Coming at you, throwing a lot of strikes, fastballs on both sides of the plate, well located. This is going to be a great ball game to watch from a learning perspective. From a pitcher standpoint, you got a great brain in Matheny behind the plate. You got Matt Morris on the mound, who's very aggressive, locates his fastball very well, and he's got a tremendous breaking ball. Very rarely in the game today are you going to see a power curveball like you see from Matt Morris this afternoon.
Rolling way in at third. Pujols also cheating in at first. Sanchez can fly. Takes the first pitch from Morris for a ball. Rolen still weighing at third base. It's a chopper in the hole for a base hit. Alex Sanchez setting the table as he hits it through the right side between Pujols and Delgado at second base. A couple of changes here. We talked about some of them while the Cardinals were batting, but it's a little bit of a makeshift defense, but right there in the middle of an anchor in his Renteria.
Well, that left side of the infield for the St. Louis Cardinals is pretty much out there every single day. Renteria is a guy that started in Florida for the Marlins, but he has been a fixture at shortstop for the St. Louis Cardinals, not only from a defensive perspective, but he's also given Tony La Russa some great punch in the lineup.
This is in with that pitch, so he started off behind on the first two batters he's faced today. Eric Young, Brewers second baseman.
This is not a bad position for Eric Young to be hitting it in the second spot, because he likes to hit the ball the other way, likes to keep his hands inside the ball, hit the ball the right side. And when you've got Sanchez on first base, a lot of times you're going to get pitchers who are really going to have to concentrate on Sanchez. This kid can absolutely fly, and you've got a guy hitting in the second spot. Even though he's older, the guy Eric Young can still hit the ball to the right side, and he's still got some juice left in those legs.
Very high on base percentage in the top two spots, and there goes Sanchez. The pitch out. Matheny has to reach for it, and the throw is there.
The one thing about that play right there, in order to get a guy that's fast and a good base stealer like Alex Sanchez, you've got to have a good move from the pitcher. And you see Matt Morris doesn't pick his leg up all the way, gets the ball straight to the plate in a hurry. Nice pitch out to Matheny, and Matheny doesn't try to do too much with it. Doesn't get in a hurry, just gets the ball, throws the ball, puts it right on the money. Renteria there to apply a nice tag.
Despite all of his speed, Sanchez has now been gunned 4 out of 6 times. So he's got to transfer some of the head and then some of the experience of learning leads and pitcher's moves to the wheels.
See Matt Morris with that fastball right on the outside corner. The ball starts a little bit off the plate and runs right back to the outside corner.
Breaking pitch popped high in the air. It's in no man's land out there. Marrero in center field camps under it for the second out here in the opening inning. So after Sanchez led things off, suddenly Sexton's going to bat with 2 outs and nobody on. Talking to Ned Yost before the game and asking him about his lineup, and he's very much into having a set lineup. That he wants these guys to know they're there. He's decided to put Richie in the 3-hole instead of the 4th hole because he'll get him 40 extra bats a year, hitting 3 instead of 4 over the course of a season.
I think the Milwaukee Brewers can score some runs. I think the biggest key for this ball club is what are they going to do pitching wise. You know, pitching is such a tough thing these days. You can find some arms, but can you teach them how to pitch? That's the big key, and I think that for this ball club in the future, if they're going to be successful, they've got to be able to teach their young pitchers coming up through the minor league system, not only from the draft board, but also the developmental stages. Teach these guys how to pitch before they get to the big leagues.
There's a guy that can do that. Greg's brother, Mike Maddox, who had to know how to pitch. He didn't have the stuff his little brother had.
Well, the thing about Mike is I think that he made himself into a big league pitcher from his head, not from his arm. And you said that very well. I mean, he's not Greg, but this guy knows how to pitch, and he's trying to translate that to his young pitchers on this staff.
Morris pitches around Richie Sexson. A lot of breaking pitches and then a fastball on the outer half. So a 2-out walk to Sexson. There's another high on base percentage guy, and it brings up Jeff Jenkins.
I love to watch Jeff Jenkins swing the bat. He absolutely lets it fly. There's nothing left in his swing, whether he's hitting a fastball, a breaking ball, or a changeup. He is not getting cheated.
USC product off to a torrid start after really an excruciating ankle injury last year.
If you look at this lineup, Gary, if you're an opposing pitcher, the 2 guys that you don't want to beat you are Richie Sexson and Jeff Jenkins. And those are the guys that you've got to be careful with. The last thing that you want to do is leave a cookie over the middle of the plate or a mistake pitch hanging in the zone, because these guys are going to hammer.
Take something off that pitch, and Jenkins way out in front of that.
Jenkins likes to get out there and hit the baseball. A ball that's up and away from him, he's going to hit to the left field. A ball that's down and away from him, he's going to try to hook it. And to keep a guy from hooking the baseball like that, you've got to come in with a fastball, make him retreat his hands, and then you've got to change speeds, very similar to what Matt Morris did with that changeup right there.
Jenkins 4 for 9 in the series so far, but he pops this one up on the infield. Rolen will make the last out of the first inning, so the Brewers leave A runner stranded. What would they have done if they hadn't had Matheny throwing out Sanchez? He'll lead off next inning. We're back on day game. Gary Miller and Jeff Brantley with you as Wayne Franklin throws his first pitch of the second inning. Mike Matheny, who has thrown the best ball all day. Jeff.
Yes, he did. Threw out Alex Sanchez at second base. And if you know a little bit about Mike Matheny, the reason that he's in the big leagues is simply because he's a catch and throw guy. He does a great job working behind the plate. But so far this season, he has.
You don't think he's going to hit 392 come September?
I don't think so. But you know, the thing about it is I would take Mike Matheny on my team and let him catch my ball club, even if he didn't get a hit all year long. That's how good of a catcher he is and how great he receives the ball and works with the pitchers. And this offense that he's providing is a tremendous plus.
Backs his man in right field up. But there to make the catch is John Vanderwall for the first out here in the top of the second. Reminder, this Sunday night we're at Nextel Stadium in Oakland. John Miller and Joe Morgan bring you Sunday Night Baseball. AL MVP Miguel Tejada and the A's host Alex Rodriguez and the Texas Rangers at 8 Eastern Time, 5 Pacific. And again, this game will also be available on ESPN's new high-definition service, ESPN HD. It's the big picture in sports.
I need some HD in Jackson, Mississippi. That's what I need.
You don't have anything?
I don't think so.
Wilson Delgado appearing. Trying to get add to his hit total of 1 for the season. He's going in for Fernando Vina, who's not even with the team. His injury has progressed to that point.
I think the reason that they sent Vina back was how he hurt his hand was taking too many swings, too much batting practice, trying to get everything right in his swing.
There's no way to keep him from doing that if you have him here, right?
If he's here at the ballpark.
Yeah, Fernando is.
All right, B, we're sending you to the house.
You have no self-discipline. We're going to have to do it for you. It's kind of like Byung-Young Kim with his throwing procedures out in Arizona. They turn around and there's the guy throwing in the outfield after he pitched 7 innings.
Well, I'll tell you what, you want guys to be a Fernando Vina simply because he's going to work as hard as he possibly can to get himself back. But there are some times that as a manager, as a trainer, you've got to protect the player against his own self. Very similar to Albert Pujols. The guy wants to be out there every day. Fernando Vina wants to be in the lineup every day. He wants to make sure that his swing's right, and sometimes you've got to protect him from themselves. Get him away from the ballpark.
Got it down to the count, but he evens it at 2-2 as Franklin misses up. He's 1 for 10 in the year. That hit did come against a left-handed pitcher, so maybe Wilson can add to that.
Well, Delgado is in the lineup today simply to provide some defensive expertise for Matt Morris on the mound. Whatever you get from him from an offensive standpoint is obviously a plus, but the kid can catch the ball and he can run a little bit and he can move around out there at second base.
250 this spring, knocked in 6 runs. He's got that springtime number 47 for a second baseman. It's a hack there, full count pitch.
Wayne Franklin has got to continue to throw strikes, especially to the bottom half of the order. Continue to change speeds, work both sides of the plate. If he can do that, then he's going to be successful, but he's got to be able to continue to attack the strike zone.
3-2 pitch. Breaking pitch, and he pops it sky high. Clayton going back. Jenkins coming in. Looks like Clayton's going to catch it under the roof. 1 out. There are 2 outs here in the top of the second.
You'll watch this pitch right here from Wayne Franklin. It's a 3-2 breaking ball. He leaves it up in the zone a little bit, but the last thing that you want to do to a number 8 hitter is walk him. Make him swing the bat. Get the ball into the air, and you've got an easy out.
Matt Morris trying to help his cause. Franklin looking to get a 3-up, 3-down inning, and he starts off the opposing pitcher with a strike.
You see that pitch right there, Gary. If you can get that pitch down in the zone every time you throw it, you should throw it nowhere else. Very difficult to
accept. Isn't that kind of the pitch that Rolen hit out of here?
Exactly. But the pitch that Rolen hit out was a changeup that he left right in the middle of the play. You keep the ball down on a consistent basis, you're going to be getting a whole lot of guys out. But that's the thing that you look for early in a ball game, is try to figure out where the umpire's zone is. If he's going to give you a ball that's down below the hollow of the knee, then you need to stay there all day.
Gary Miller and Jeff Brantley bringing this game day to you. Day game, game day. I think that's kind of why we're using that moniker, playing off the football analogy, which a Mississippi guy can appreciate. Right?
Oh, yeah. I can appreciate a lot of things.
I've seen some of them, yeah. And as I get to know you better, I'm adding to that list. It'll be a full notebook by September.
You're taking notes on me now.
I got you. I got more notes. I need about a 15 pocket jacket. Matt Morris, who is not an embarrassment with the bat, gives it a ride. Jenkins to the wall. It's gone. Matt Morris' third hit of the year is a solo home run with 2 outs in the second.
That ball was crushed. We just got finished talking about keeping the ball down in the zone. If you've got an umpire behind the plate that's going to give you that as a strike, keep the ball down there. Don't take anything for granted. This pitch from Wayne Franklin is in the middle of the plate, belt high, and even the pitcher can hit that pitch out. You see Eddie Perez, as the ball gets close to the plate, he starts to lift his glove up towards the hitter. Belt high, middle in fastball. That's what you dream about.
See if they can find that ball, because Matt's going to want it. First ever major league home run. Yeah, it's people in the dugout know it. That looks like he's been to the salon this spring. Tweaked up a little bit.
Working
got some highlights going.
Working the new hairdo. The thing about Matt Morris, and even though this is his first major league home run, you can be assured that his celebration about a first major league home run will come tomorrow. It won't come right now. This guy's, he's about as serious as it comes when you're talking about game day when he's pitching. Loves to have a good time when he's not on the hill, but when it's game time, he's locked in.
Franklin making the big mistake, the cardinal mistake, as it were. Now faces Cairo with 2 outs, but a run has come in on the solo home run for Matt Morris. The Cardinal ace stakes himself to a 3-0 lead as he faces the middle of the Brewers order coming up. Listen to him sizzle. You can change the ballpark from County Stadium to Miller Park, but it's still the home of the Brats. Gary Miller and Jeff Brantley with you on Day Game, a day game in which Matt Morris has hit a solo home run behind him, and now Wayne Franklin talking things over with his pitching coach, Mike Mannix. I think that's probably the subject.
Well, I think the biggest thing that Maddox is telling him is get the ball down in the zone. A lot of times you get out there, you get yourself in a little trouble, you get a little frustrated with the way that you're making pitches, and you try to throw the ball a little bit harder, and when you get outside of your normal comfort range, the ball elevates. When the ball elevates, major league hitters take you deep, even the pitchers.
John Vanderwall in right field tonight. We mentioned that Jeffrey Hammons really tore up his ankle last night, leaping against the wall. So the oft-injured Jeffrey Hammons is back on the disabled list for the 2nd time as a Brewer, 8th time in his career, and good thing they got John Vanderwall here to fill in.
Vanderwall could swing the bat from the left side. Great guy to have off the bench. Not going to hurt you defensively. He's going to give you a quality AB every time he comes to the plate.
I'm very pleased to have signed with Milwaukee. We'll see. He's from Grand Rapids, Michigan, so the family and his 3 kids can make the trip here. I think it's about a 4-hour drive, so it's made it very homey for him. He's indicated that depending on what happens this year, this could be it for him. He's very happy to be here in Milwaukee. So he's not happy about that as Morris fools him to strike him out to start the 2nd inning. We are here on Day Game, but tonight the NBA regular season is wrapping up. In fact, it is Michael Jordan's last ever game, so he says. The Wizards are in Philadelphia to take on Iverson and the Sixers. That's at 7 Eastern. At 10, the Sacramento Kings in Utah against the Jazz. The NBA playoffs begin this week. For more, log on to ESPN.com.
One thing that you can count on as we see this breaking ball from Matt Morris to Wes Helms is when Matt Morris has his breaking ball working, he's throwing it for a strike. It's usually a long day for the opposition.
Wes Helms had a long first 2 weeks, but he's broken out of it a bit in this series. He's hitting both games, 5 for 8 in this series. The guy who they weren't even sure was going to stay in the lineup.
Another breaking ball right there, 1-1 count. That ball's right on the outside corner with some snap.
Helms goes with that pitch. It's going to back Perez into the corner, and it'll bounce into the seats for a ground rule double.
Wes Helms came up with the Atlanta Braves organization. Ned Yost has seen him play many times. The book on this guy is that he can flat out swing the bat. You see this pitch right here. Fastball stays in the middle of the plate. Even though the ball's down a little bit, Matt Morris just got it over the plate just a little bit too much for Helms.
Second hit of the game for the Brewers here with 1 out in the 2nd inning. That's one of the things that Ned Yost said. Here's another ex-Brave, Eddie Perez, who's hitting .290 in the early going. Catcher for Ned Yost. He hits a chopper. Tough for Delgado. Got a chop. Morris over there to cover. Vanderwall moves over to 3rd.
That's a great play right there by Matt Morris. Any ball that's hit to the right side, as a pitcher, you're taught move towards first base. You never know when the first baseman is going to make an attack for a ball that's in no man's land. And as you see Matt Morris right here, right away, you see him moving towards first base. Well, you see Pujols come into the picture, and he's trying to go for the ball at the same time. If Matt Morris doesn't break right away to first base, they don't get an out there.
How many times have we seen plays already this year, Jeff, where nobody was there to cover first base?
Well, the thing about it is you have to know in your mind as a pitcher, any ball that's hit to the right side, you break towards first base. You can always stop, but you can't always beat the runner down the line if you don't break right away.
Royce Clayton, who has hit 1 of the 6 home runs. In fact, we got 2 guys who have hit home runs in the series facing each other now. Matt Morris against Royce Clayton, who hit his 4th home run of the year last night. He's got a dozen RBIs, hitting .375 for a guy they signed for his defense.
Well, Royce is definitely going to look for the ball that's out over the plate. He's looking for a fastball to hit. Clayton has never been a real good breaking ball hitter, but he doesn't miss too many fastballs.
Dean sets up way outside. So now it's a 3-1 count with the pitcher Franklin on deck.
And this is the thing that Matt Morris is trying to do right here, as you see Matheny really move out, is he's trying to get either a call from the umpire right on the outside corner, or a ball that may be a little bit off, or he's trying to get Royce Clayton to chase a pitch. You've got 2 outs with a runner at third base, and you got the pitcher coming up. The smart thing to do from a veteran perspective is you make the pitcher beat you in that situation, not the guy that's the hottest hitter on the Milwaukee Brewers club hitting in the 8th spot.
Clayton's not only hitting in the 8th spot, he's got an 8-game hitting streak. So you pitch around him. He homered last night. 6 home runs in this series, so the long ball has played a big part. Let's see if Franklin can do anything to Morris. First pitch swinging, pops it foul. I talked about Wes Helms and the horrible start that he had, and he's really coming out of it now in this series. And that's one of the things that Ned Yost said he really learned from Bobby Cox, is patience with guys. Let them ride it out.
It's very difficult changing teams, especially when you're young and trying to reprove yourself. When you go from one organization to the other, you see a lot of new guys. Even though people have seen you play, you want to show them your tools right away. You want to prove yourself over again. And a lot of times when you do that, you try to do a little bit too much. It takes you out of your element, and you begin to struggle.
Franklin behind 0-2, and he swings through. So Morris, you talked about how smart he is, and you want to talk smart? How about this guy, the Hall of Famer, Mr. Baseball, in the booth next. Back on day game at Miller Park in the 3rd inning, leading things off with a hot shot foul is Eli Marrero, and we're very pleased. Get ready to giggle, folks, or get ready to not hear much of me, because when I'm around this man, Hall of Famer Bobby Crew. Do you have to get serious now?
They'll be sorry they did that.
No
I know
kidding.
they will. Yeah, they'll be sorry.
You'll be
Somebody
stealing
sorry
stuff out of there, right?
They told me if I'd quit, they'd put me in there. No, I'm not going to quit.
Chopper to Clayton, deep in the hole, guns across the diamond, and gets his man.
No, nice to see you guys. How you been, Gare? Good to see you, Jeff.
Good to see you.
Yeah, nice to have you guys here.
Now,
first time here? First time in the ballpark here?
Yes.
Is it? Good.
We didn't get here. We weren't invited for the All-Star game. You're used to that, right?
Yeah, you're right. You got that right, yeah.
This is a beautiful place.
Yeah, it's nice place to work. Yeah, we got a
did you ever
facility here.
Did you ever think that you'd see this in Milwaukee, this kind of complex? I mean, this is nice.
No, as a matter of fact, I thought I'd be buried at County Stadium when they knocked it down. I was laying over there having a good time. I didn't even know they knocked it down.
This would have been a typical County Stadium day, too.
Yeah. You know, I was talking to Jeff before the game. We were talking about all the bad weather that you have here in the month of April, sometimes even in May. But we never missed an opening day over there, Gary. It's funny, yeah. It's playing those on those rotten days with cold and snow and everything else. But you know, it always worked out.
Now, I know in the past when we've talked before this great honor is going to be bestowed upon you this summer to go to Cooperstown, that you used to send stuff up there.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the day I got released, they took my uniform and some of my other stuff, and they sent it up there and burned it, just to make sure that I wouldn't sure I wouldn't come back. But I have a bat up there. It's at a filling station across the street from the Hall of Fame. They use it for a jackhammer.
Works good, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, everything's fine. I mean, the jack works good. Bat's still looking good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like new, right? Rolen, who powdered one out of the park last time, this one dents the wall out there with a line double. So Scott Rolen certainly knows how to hit your man Wayne Franklin. What can you tell us about this kid?
I'll tell you one thing about Scott Rolen. I mean, a full season with St. Louis, he ought to put up some tremendous numbers. I mean, he ought to really make a difference. He got over there last year and then got hurt. But I like Scott Rolen. I always have liked him. He's a tough guy. He doesn't ask for very much. What more would you ask for? $9 million a year, you know. But no, I like him. He's a good, solid player. Wayne Franklin is one of those guys, Gary. If he doesn't get out in front of you, you know, he doesn't have that real hard stuff. You know, the big fastball where he can blow it by you. And he pitched a good game against Randy Johnson and the Diamondbacks his last time out, but he basically stayed in front and had guys chasing. But if he can't do that, and especially with guys like Rolen and this guy, who I think is unbelievable.
Well, we were talking about earlier, in order for him to be successful, he's very similar to a lot of young pitchers. They've got to believe in their second and third pitch to throw for a strike when they're behind in the count. You watch Matt Morris, that's what he's doing right now with a big breaking ball, and this kid's going to have to do the same thing.
You know, he's like a lot of left-handers, Jeff, guys that didn't throw real hard. They got that little tailor that they keep down and away from a right-hander and try to get you to chase. But if you don't chase, if you can discipline yourself to make a guy like him throw strikes, and you watch Tommy John and Jimmy Key and all those other guys, man, I mean, they drove you nuts until you made them throw strikes.
Well, hitters in the big leagues, especially the veteran guys, they're going to make you come in.
Pujols perfectly placed in the hole with them holding Rolen. He'll be going all the way. The throw from Vanderwall is up the line, and Pujols gets a base hit and takes second. That was a great piece of hitting.
Most hitters, Bob, especially in this day and age, they're going to give you the inside part of the plate. They're going to try to take away two pitches on the outside part of the plate, the off-speed pitch and the fastball away, and we see that pitch right there. He's not trying to do too much with that ball. Just drive it and slap it the other way. If you can't pitch inside or at least throw breaking balls for strikes on the inside part of the plate, makes for a long afternoon.
Well, you know, especially with a guy like Pujols, who's got such big power all over the place. But yeah, you're right. You're better off trying to jam him, because he'll chase in there too, because he wants RBIs. But anything you hang out over the middle. And here's another guy. This guy's the same way.
This guy feasts on left-handed pitching as well, Eduardo Perez.
He's a guy Tony loves having, especially at the end of the ball game. There's a lot of clubs out there that have pinch hitters that can come in and get a base hit.
Yep.
The most damage is done by having a guy like this come in, and he may only give you 8 or 9 home runs a year, but when they do, they're usually in a pinch hit role late in the ball game, and it puts you on top. And if you can have a guy that just gives you 2 or 3 of those, is a huge plus.
Pretty good when you're battling Houston for the Central Division. They got Billy Wagner, and you got this guy coming off the bench late in the game.
It's nice to have a right-handed power hitter at the end of the ball game to hit it in, Ron.
There's a lot of guys that don't like Billy Wagner, including his brother and his sons. That guy can hump it.
Eddie's swinging on a 3-0 pitch.
It's amazing when you look at guys like Wagner. He's not big, and they throw so awfully hard. And then you get a lot of guys, big guys, Jeff, who are, look like they'd be strictly power-type pitchers, and they don't, they throw 85, 88. I love watching that guy pitch.
Billy Wagner, Scott Williamson in Cincinnati, both of those guys, I think I got them. And,
oh, really?
And they can absolutely bring it. They can hump it. They can bring it.
Yep.
And a lot of that is his leg drive more than anything else.
Pitches around Eddie Perez. Now a little conference coming out here. Now, Bob, give us your rendition of what is actually being said out here.
Well, if I'm taking this a wild guess, I'm saying that Mike Maddox is saying, look, Ned Yost sent me out here to ask you to try to do better. I don't really want to be out here. I don't even know what's going on, but he did send me out here. Plus, your family is sitting behind home plate and they're getting beat up by the fans, so I advise you to do a little bit better.
Well, you know, a lot of times, especially with a young pitcher, all you're trying to do is calm him down a little bit. Let his heart stop beating and see if you can help him out.
I never used to go out there when a manager went out there like that, because more often than not, they took me out.
Yeah, this is not about you, pitcher.
Yeah.
It's about the pitchers you can call.
Exactly, yeah. You, come here, you're out of here.
Blame it on the catcher. Tell you what, I think Maddox is going to do a good job for this staff. I think he has a real good grasp about what you need to do from a pitching perspective, and I think he can translate that to some of the younger and the older pitchers on this ball club.
Oh, he throws behind Edgar Renteria, but a nice pickup by Eddie Perez.
That's a heck of a play by Perez. That's a tough chance right there. Well, Jeff, as you well know, guys who are young and boy, that's a tough play right there. But guys who are young and don't throw hard, and you don't have to really be a blower to pitch in the big leagues. You can get by with, you know, breaking stuff and pitching. But when you don't throw hard and you're pitching from behind, you got problems. And we have a couple of guys like that here in Milwaukee, and in Franklin. Shane Nance is another guy. John Foster. They got 4 left-handers in the bullpen, and I think Maddox is going to help them. I mean, there's nothing else you can do. I mean, you know, you've got to make these guys work because it's all you have.
You're right. You know, I like to explain it to the young guys in these kind of terms. If you're in a fight, are you going to punch the guy and back up and say, okay, you punch me now? No, you're going to attack him. Right. And that's what you have to do in the strike zone. You attack the strike zone until the hitter either gets you or you get him, but you don't back off, because the more pitches a hitter sees, the better off he's going to be.
I used to have a lot of bruises on my back.
Swings the 2-2 pitch. Franklin decides to go to second, and Clayton's going to try and turn it. No. Interesting. He was looking right at third base there, but I don't think Helms was over there to cover.
Well, this play right here, this ball's not hit quite hard enough in order to get a double play. The one thing that you want to make sure of is that you get an out at second base. Royce does a great job of trying to get to. Sixton makes a nice pick there.
A couple of great pickups to save what could be a worse inning for the Brewers.
I think probably what ends up getting missed in that whole play there is the fact that Edgar Renteria was absolutely busting it down the first baseline, and that in itself keeps the inning alive. If you're just taking for granted, well, I hit a ball to the pitcher, woe is me, and you jog down the line, well, that's a double play, you're out of the inning.
Well, imagine if Perez doesn't pick up that scoop that was just a bit inside.
Just a bit outside.
There wouldn't have been any force play.
Hey, this guy's one of my favorite players, boy, right here, Mike Matheny. I think he's one of the best catchers in all of baseball.
I totally agree with you.
We had him here a few years ago, and we let him get away. And he's turned himself into an all-star.
I said earlier when we came on the air that
clocks that one into left field, and that's going to drive in a run.
I don't care if he ever does that. I just want him behind the plate.
And they're going to send Renteria. The relay from Clayton. Late. A 2-run double from Mike Matheny, who's exploding offensively.
Anything that you get from him from the offensive side is a plus, because he's gonna make your pitchers better and more comfortable than you can even imagine. And that's the one place, and you know this, the one place that you're responsible not only for your own actions, but you're responsible for the guy that's on the mound. And a lot of catchers don't take it that way.
You got it. Yep. And Matheny, he's not a great runner. He can throw, he can catch. This year he's off to an unbelievable start. He's finally made his mind up for the most part, Jeff, that he's going to hit the right field. Boy, it's been beneficial for him.
Well, when he came up, he tried to pull everything, trying to be a prototypical catcher, trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark, and he doesn't have to do that. All he's got to do is put the ball in play. Just don't strike out.
That Ford's starting to get loose in the Brewers lineup. Franklin can't get out of this thing.
This is the trouble you have with a club like St. Louis, too, and especially with a Matt Morris on today, because as the game goes on, he's going to start heating up. I mean, once he gets a lead and gets comfortable, he's one of the best in either league. I really like him. He throws hard, and he's got that big-time curveball.
Well, he's got control not only of his pitches, but he's got control of his emotions. And he learned that really quick when he first got to the big leagues, because he was forced to.
Wilson Delgado with a dribbler to third. Helms throwing hard across the diamond, and he gets out of it. But they put up 3 more. The Cardinals have a big 6-0 lead for Matt Morris, and more with Mr. Baseball when we come back. Park in Milwaukee on day game. Matt Morris now has a 6-0 lead in the bottom of the third. His leadoff man, Alex Sanchez, gets another hit. And we are continuing to be joined by Bob Uecker. Now, Bob, he got single and thrown out last time. How can a guy with that kind of speed get thrown out 4 out of 6 times?
I tell you, he's exciting. He's got baseball instincts to a certain point, and he's trying to learn. You know, they're working a lot with him playing in center field. They got to play him very deep because he doesn't go back on a ball very well, which of course leaves anything hit into that area of center, shallow, those little flares that he can't get to. But he can run. The fans like him, but every once in a while, you know, he gets picked off. He makes a mistake, and they had to kind of take him off. He was on his own last year, and that didn't prove to be too beneficial.
Young tries to bunt and fouls it back.
The one thing about having a guy like that on base with some of your sluggers coming up from any pitcher standpoint, good, bad, or ugly, is you got a guy with some wheels on base. It's going to take away a little bit of your concentration with the guy at the plate, because you've got to make sure that you hold him close. And a lot of times pitchers now will try to use a slide step or something, a shortened delivery, and sometimes that takes away from the velocity of the ball that's coming to the plate.
1-1 pitch to Young, swinging away and hacks it foul. Sanchez now 7 for 11 in this series.
He's an exciting player. He really is. We got him from Tampa, and like I said, he can run. He doesn't have a great arm, but he can cover a lot of ground in center field. And left-handed or right-handed pitcher, doesn't make any difference. I mean, he slaps the ball to left field. He hits the gaps, and if he can run, anytime you got speed, it's a plus.
Little chopper to third. Rolen with a nice pickup, and he throws it across the diamond to get the lead runner, Sanchez. And doing it with the bat and the glove.
That is an awesome play right there.
I'll tell you, that's what I was talking about that guy before. I mean, he obviously didn't want to stay in Philadelphia, but that guy can pick it. He's got a great arm. That's a tough chance right there, and then turn yourself around and make the play at second. It shows you what kind of a player he is, and what they think of Scott Rolen to give him the kind of contract they did. And you know, the Phillies offered him a lot more money, but he didn't want to stay there.
Most third basemen would have take that play and thrown the ball to first base. But
yeah, I mean, take the sure guy.
Instincts and knowing that confidence-wise that you can make that throw on the run, gunslinging it to second base
and make the pick on the in-between hop. Richie Sexton got pitched around last time. Young breaking with it, and Sexton drills it. It takes a hard hop. That's what happens when you got makeshift outfielders, and Cairo's relay throw is dropped by Renteria as well. So with Young breaking on the pitch, he comes all the way around, and the ball drilled by Richie Sexton.
When you hear the term getting caught in between, that was it right there.
That was it, yep.
That ball was hit so hard that Cairo thought the ball was going to come right to him. Top spin on the ball. Then he just embarrasses himself.
Yeah, they don't bounce like that in the infield.
I think Richie knows he hit it on the screws. That's not good. Can't wave the ball down like that. Worst case scenario at that point is get in front of the ball just like a middle infielder and knock the thing down. Don't try to do the Olay and let it go.
Which Miguel has some experience at. Yeah, he has played third. But we saw a guy short hopping and rolling in the infield, and then the next play Cairo couldn't.
Sexton can hit some balls hard, Kenny Bone.
Yeah, you know what? A couple of years ago when they opened this place, and the signs all around here, although the All-Star game, the home run hitting contest they had then, they were hitting balls up in that Bernie Brewers dugout up there. But Richie Sexton hit a ball off that sign in center field, the Pepsi sign out there, the first night they had batting practice here, which
on the scoreboard
told you the ball carries pretty good here. I mean, it's probably a little bit better when the roof is open, but during the All-Star game, Bernie's chalet out there, that slide and everything else they have out there, was a target for batting practice. Guys were hitting off there left and right.
Does Bernie wear a helmet then during batting practice?
That is Bernie's regular outfit. That is a man. That's just the way he is. He does not take anything off. That's the way he is.
That's not a costume.
No, it is not a costume. That's just the way he is. I don't know where he came from or how we got him, but that's what he is.
That's what happens when you're sitting you live basically in beer all day. That's kind of how you turn out, right? You swell a little bit.
It's actually the only job you can get. I mean, where else? You're not going to hire a guy like that to work in an office, you know?
Does this three-man booth remind you of the old Monday Night Baseball?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're an idiot. I'd make some kind. Yeah, you're an idiot. You know, one night we were doing a game in Boston. This really happened. And he was doing one of his dissertations. And he used the word truculent. I loved Howie. I really did, because I could mess around with him all the time. He used the word truculent. He looked at me and he said, obviously, you don't know what I mean. And I said, sure I do. If you had a truck and I borrowed it, it would be a truculent. And he looked at me. He looked at me. I mean, he wanted to call me every name he could think of, but we were on the air and he couldn't do it. It was beautiful.
Truculent.
How did Howard prepare for a game? Besides notes, were there other things?
He didn't. He didn't prepare. I mean, that guy had such a mind. It was unbelievable. You know, even the stuff he did at halftime for football, he'd look at the stuff one time, he'd do it without no notes, nothing. Chet Forty used to tell him, you know, look at it, just tell me when to go. That's all he'd say. You know, he was something.
Did you tell me once he got his piece caught in the headset?
Oh, no, it was slipping off. It got so hot in the booth, and his headset had flipped his piece down over his forehead, and the cans, the earpieces, were pushing his cheeks into his mouth. It really looked good. He really looked good.
So the glue was melting?
Yeah, everything was coming apart on him, man. Shirt sleeves tore off, everything. He was glued together. His pants were glued. Everything was glued.
He had that voice, though.
He was beautiful.
Amazing.
Yeah, you're an idiot.
We would never say that. You're a Hall of Famer.
I loved him, man. No, I'm looking forward to the ceremony in July. I really am. It's quite an honor, and there's a lot of other guys that deserve it too, and they'll get there. I wish there was a way they could put more than one guy in each year. I really do.
Do you think you'll be nervous?
No, I'm going to be funny. I'm not going to be serious. You know, I can't be. I can't. I'll have a good time. I'm going to have a good time. I really am.
I think it'll be one of the greatest inductions ever. That'll be a tape worth having. Bob, it's always great to visit with you. We thank Bob Uecker for joining in, and we're going to talk to Doug Melvin the next inning.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Gary. It's always good seeing you, and Jeff, always good seeing you guys. Enjoy your work. I really do.
Thanks, you.
Watch you guys all the time. You betcha.
What kind of dirt can you give us on Doug Melvin?
Who's Doug Melvin?
He's the guy in the front of the media guys. Who's got a better mustache, Bernie the Brewer or Doug Melvin?
Okay, let's not let this go beyond here, okay?
Okay.
Doug Melvin is Bernie Brewer, okay?
There you go. I think you're onto something.
That's before the game. That's before he gets dressed, and that's him after he gets dressed.
That's how he got the job, right?
I'm telling you, man.
Because he looks like Bernie Brewer.
Let's leave it in the booth, though, okay?
Okay. We got candidates here, but hey, this guy looks like Bernie Brewer. He's the new GM.
Doug Melvin's done a good job. He's a good guy, man. He's a former player. He's got a big job to do here, and I've really enjoyed being around him. I've known him for a long, long time, and he'll get the job done here. It might take some time, but he'll get the job done.
Opportunity for Wes Helms against Matt Morris, and Rolen's going to snuff it out again. So Scott Rolen's defense comes in handy. They get a run, but it's 6-1 St. Louis, and we'll talk to Doug Melvin when we come back here at Miller Park. We're back at Miller Park, ESPN day game. Cardinals off to a 6-1 lead as they try to take 2 out of 3 here in Milwaukee. Brewers won their first home game of the season last night. But they're in a 6-1 hole to Matt Morris. Could have been worse, but Scott Rolen really bailed them out last inning defensively. Morris coming off his first major league home run in his last at bat.
Well, Morris is all game when it's time for his turn to come up in the rotation.
Hanging in there on an 0-2 pitch, chops it foul to Helms.
And the one thing that we see now with Wayne Franklin, even though he's given up 6 runs early in this ball game, he's still out there because they're trying to get his pitch count up, trying to get him to learn how to pitch, and a lot of times the best time to learn how to pitch is after you've gotten hit around a little bit.
You know what was amazing about that foul ball is the guy in the stand gave it to a kid wearing a Cardinal jersey. So a 2-2 pitch now as Morris has worked the count. And he's still hanging in there. He's turning into a dangerous hitter now, Jeff.
Well, the pitch that he hit out of the ballpark was a fastball, middle in, belt high, and as Wayne Franklin is going to find out very soon, that those are pitches that just about anybody in the big leagues is going to hit, and they're going to hit them hard.
Now after an 0-2 advantage, it's suddenly a full count as he just missed low on that pitch to Morris. And he loses him. So probably not the most opportune time to welcome in the general manager of the Milwaukee Brewers, Doug Melvin. And Franklin coming off an outing in which he beat Randy Johnson, but it doesn't look that way this afternoon. But how much hope do you have for this kid in the future?
Yeah, he's having his struggles today, but you know, Wayne's getting the opportunity, and it's going to be up to him as to his performance and where it's going to take him. And that's about what our club's all about, is giving players like this opportunities. Players have had success at AAA, but now they're going to get a chance and see what they can do.
Well, I would assume that part of the growing process in putting this organization back on its feet is giving the young pitchers an opportunity to come up here and learn and try to find some success. And it's, as you know, Doug, it's very difficult being a young guy and trying to find some consistency at this level.
Right. There'll be some growing pains, Jeff, no doubt in that. But, you know, we're going to play hard. We're going to play right to the final out in 162 games, and that's what it's about. We have some younger players in our AA level, but for a couple years, we got a number of players out here, you know, like Wayne Franklin and that Wes Helms, people like that are going to be given chances. And we're not a real young club. We're not like Tampa Bay, you know, we're not Cleveland Indians, who really have totally rebuilt and are really young. We have got a number of players. Matt Kinney's another one. Have had success at AAA. They're in the age of 25 to 28. We're going to give them every opportunity to see that they're big league players.
What do you do from a general manager standpoint, Doug, to be able to develop these young pitchers and get them into a program and get them to the big leagues?
Well, you know, you got to have obviously very good pitching coaches, both in your minor league system and at the big league level. And Mike Maddox is new, and he's on the job, and obviously he knows a lot about pitching. He ended up having, what, 10, 11, 12 years in the big leagues, hung out with his brother.
And manufactured those years with his head.
Yeah, and it's a lot about pitching. And when Mike came aboard, he said his objective is to try to get our pitchers to throw strikes. That's why we went out and signed a Royce Clayton. If we're going to have our pitchers throwing strikes, we got to have people behind them. They're going to catch the ball too. And that's what they have to do. Wayne's nibbling here a little bit. That's been probably his biggest problem, as opposed to just going out and challenging people. You have to have great stuff to challenge people. But you have to have a program, and like I said, growing pains with younger pitchers. Meantime, we have Ben Sheets, Glendon Rush, Todd Ritchie. They're more the, even though Ben's young, I consider them established to the fact that while Ben's still maybe learning in certain ways to become that quality #1 pitcher, they are people that I feel comfortable with at the top end of the rotation. And then the other pitchers are just going to have to learn. A lot of them will learn through some failure. That's tough to do, but you have to do it sometimes.
Part of coming to the big leagues, and I guess from a pitching coach's perspective, what you really want your young pitchers to do is not look at the back of the jersey. Don't look at the name that's standing at the plate.
Right.
Just look at the catcher and throw the baseball. And a lot of times that's very difficult for a young guy.
Yes, it is. And I had a conversation with Glendon Rush about that in spring training, and it's interesting you brought that up. And Glendon said when he first came to the big leagues with Kansas City, he thought every hitter in the lineup was Alex Rodriguez and Barry Bonds, and you might have gone through it yourself. And
well, everybody does.
Yeah,
That's
and he's looking up there, and he said that. He said every hitter was a great hitter, and then all of a sudden, as he got better himself, all of a sudden there was 3 or 4 guys that he knew he could get out, and then there's 4 or 5 guys he can get out. But you know, every lineup does have 3 or 4 quality big league, you know, prime time hitters, and you really have to work your tail off to get them out. But you also do, as time goes on, you do find out that don't give the hitter all the credit all the time. You have to go out there and challenge them, and you're wearing a big league uniform too.
Well, there's no mistake when you have an opportunity to pitch or hit in the big leagues. There's no mistake of why you're here.
And there's Scotty Rolen teeing off. He's done it again. And you talk about a quality big league hitter. No mistake in that one. A home run, a double, and another home run.
that type of pitch right there is that's part of what we were talking about earlier, Doug. I mean, this is a learning process. You're going to have a guy come out one day and beat Randy Johnson, and then the next day he's going to give up home runs to the pitcher and be inconsistent. But isn't that part of youth?
Yeah, and you know, there's usually a lineup that has 2 or 3 guys, and you say you don't want these individuals to beat you.
Well,
and Scotty Rolen's beating us today.
Yeah, he's got a 2-run homer, a double, and a 2-run homer, and here's Pujols with a double and an RBI single. So together they're 5 for 5.
And we saw earlier with Matt Morris facing Sexton, the last thing he wanted to do was leave a ball in the middle of the plate to Richie Sexton or Jeff Jenkins, because both of those guys are guys on your ball club. If I'm the opposing pitcher, they're the last guys I want to beat me.
Right, exactly. You hope to face those individuals with nobody on base, you know, and sometimes it just doesn't happen, and like you say, you're gonna learn. It's a tough learning process, but they have to get better.
Doug, when you come to a new organization like this, is this do you have to restructure the whole organization, or?
Yeah, I think you assess the organization first. There's obviously some good people here in the organization, and then you'll get to a level where you feel you need to bring some people you feel comfortable with.
Double switch coming up as they make a pitching change. We'll have more with Brewers general manager Doug Melvin when we continue here from Miller Park. Day game. Day's over for Wade Franklin. A double switch for Ned Yost. He's brought in Keith Ginter, who actually came over in the Franklin trade for Mark Loretta. And John Foster's the new pitcher here to face Eduardo Perez. First pitch swinging. He hits a blast to the right center field part of the park. Sanchez to the wall. Gone! Home run derby for the Cardinals.
Eduardo Perez is a dead red first pitch fastball hitter, and that's what he got from the young left-hander. And a lot of times, if you're looking dead red, you're gonna do some damage with it.
So Eduardo Perez hit his first home run of the season last night, and he adds another one this afternoon. He feasts on lefties, Jeff.
Well, he loves fastballs, and he loves hitting off of left-handed pitching. I mean, this is why he's on this ball club, is exactly what he just did right there. Come in against the left-hander and be able to hit the ball out of the ballpark. Now, it's not going to happen that way all the time, but for him, he's been pretty consistent being able to swing the bat, especially late in the ball game.
4th home run of the game for St. Louis.
We have to try to get a 0 up there somewhere.
Continue visiting with Brewers general manager Doug Melvin. And that ball is scorched. Sanchez goes back on this one. Bounces high off the wall. Renteria with a stand-up double. The slugging percentage of the Cardinals is about 1,500 in this game.
Doug, we've seen a lot of balls that have been hit relatively hard. Does this ballpark carry like this normally, or is this just because the balls have been up? The balls have been up in the zone. I mean, yeah, but you see the ball really looks like it's carrying pretty well, even with the roof closed.
Yeah, well, this is my first year here, and looking at it, this obviously the ball is carrying here today a little bit. But they're hitting good pitches, or they're hitting pitches that are good for the hitters, I guess. But it looks like the gaps the ball will carry. You know, I'd like to try to get some ground ball type pitchers here in this ballpark, because I do think the fly balls will carry in the gaps. And my last study showed that we have the fewest ground ball outs in the league, so that's an area that I need to look at as a general manager. And, you know, if you have strikeout pitchers, that's one thing, but if you have strikeout pitchers and ground ball pitchers, it would help us obviously in this park. And then you look for some guys that are some fly ball hitters. You know, Richie Sexton's got a chance. Jeff Jenkins, who they get the ball in the air, they got a chance to have success here, but we've got to correct the pitching. And I'd love to have some ground ball pitchers, and there's nothing better than having a 12-pitch inning with a few ground balls mixed in there.
When you talk about getting ground ball pitchers, are new players in general, do you have a timetable that you impose upon yourself, or is it just part of the process that you look for this on a daily basis?
Well, you know, you look for it on a daily basis and see if someone's available. You know, you do all kinds of studies. We re-signed Jamie Wright, who had pitched here in the past, and he's in AAA right now. And Jamie's got a real good sinker, good breaking ball, and he's a ground ball type pitcher. So we're trying to get him straightened out in AAA, and hope we can bring him back here and that. But, you know, those kind of pitchers obviously help you, especially if you have a shortstop like Royce, who's out there and will catch the ball. And that if we weren't a very good defensive club, then obviously you might have to go the other direction. Right. But for now, I'm a big believer in getting guys to hit the ball on the ground. 3 ground ball singles as opposed to what we've seen here today with the long ball.
Helps to have a 6'7" first baseman too on that play, as he robs Mike Matheny But Scotty Rolen now has 10 total bases, 2 two-run homers, and a double. The Cardinals are laying it on the Brew Crew on day game. Back on day game here at Miller Park. The Brewers in a 10-1 hole as they bat in the 4th inning. Eddie Perez will lead things off against Matt Morris, and we've got Doug Melvin for another couple of outs here in the bottom of the 4th. The Brewers GM. And we had your Hall of Fame announcer visit us last inning, and Bob Uecker had a theory that Bernie Brewer had something to do with you getting the job. Something about the comparison of the mustache.
Oh, is that right? Does this mean I have to go down that slide too?
You haven't been down that slide?
I haven't been down that slide, but if we give up 4 or 5 more runs here, I might jump off the slide.
Oh, I can imagine though, Doug. It's got to be some semblance of frustration, but you know that things have got to get better as you put part of your plan in progress.
Yeah, and that's the fun part of it is you know, have a manager that's got all kinds of energy. If you just go down and talk to Ned, and you got a coaching staff that they all know what we're up against, and there's some good players here in that, but it's going to be a process that we're going to get better. We have to. People ask me, how many wins are we going to have? Do we want to be 500? No, we want to play better. We want to try to win every ball game. But we do have to show progress and try to get better as we're going along into the season. We do have to change our attitude around. Our model organizations have to be Oakland, have to be Minnesota, those teams. Our models are not the Yankees and not Arizona. We'll never
We're not
be
even
there.
where you came from, Texas. Where
yeah, our Texas.
A-Rod and Palmeiro contracts.
Yeah, and we had a chance to spend that kind of money. So our models have to be the Twins. Terry Ryan and Billy Beane have done great jobs, and Kansas City this year. And if you look at all those teams, they all went through some growing pains too. I remember when I was in the West Division with Texas, Oakland wasn't very good the first years, 96 and 97, when the Rangers were pretty good ball clubs, and Oakland was going through it. And then the Angels weren't very good there for a couple of years. So that's where we're at right now. But meantime, we got to keep our chin up and not get down and go out there and battle every game.
Best of luck to with the game plan, Doug, and
thanks, Gary.
Don't go jumping off Bernie's.
Good to see you.
Bernie's dugout anytime soon.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Doug.
Doug Melvin, the Brewers GM, and his new manager, Ned Yost. Not a glorious afternoon for the Brewer franchise, but they're ahead of last year's pace. They won only 3 games up to this point, and they're 2 games ahead of that. And he talks about Ned Yost and his positive approach, and we both visited him before the game, and that is the thing that exudes from Ned Yost. 2 strikeouts here to start off the 4th inning for Morris.
Well, I think that when you look at Ned Yost, you see where he came from, the Atlanta Braves organization. He knows what it takes to win ball games and what kind of organization that you have to have in order to get to that point on a consistent basis. He brought in Mike Maddox, who is Greg Maddox's brother, basically to put a whole teaching mechanism on his pitchers, both the young guys and the old guys. You know, we were listening to Doug Melvin talk about a while ago about modeling their organization, and the organizations that he mentioned, Oakland, Minnesota, and Kansas City. The reason that they've come back is because of the pitching development through their minor league system. If you can't go out and buy pitching, then you've got to be able to put it together in the minor leagues through your drafting, through your teaching, and what you do when you get them to the big league level. And if you're going to win with a lower payroll, it's going to be because you've got development of young pitching. That's the only way you can make it.
Keith Ginter hanging in and following that pitch off from Morris to stay at 0-2. Keith came in a double switch. Wes Helms came out. Foster came in to hit in that spot, and Ginter comes in to hit in Franklin's spot. One of the trades that Doug inherited when Ginter and Franklin came over. Mark Loretta went to the Astros, so they tried to make a playoff push last year.
And the thing about it, Gary, is when you look at it from an organizational standpoint, we talked a little bit about this with Doug Melvin. When you're changing an organization and you're trying to get younger and you're trying to give younger pitchers or younger players an opportunity to prove themselves in the big leagues, consistency is going to be very difficult to find. You would love to have it on day one, but it's going to be tough because there are growing pains that go with these young players that come to the big leagues, simply because they don't understand what it takes, not only from a physical standpoint, but from a mental standpoint to play this game at this level, at this in this type of competition, day in and day out.
hanging in there. Still 1-2 as Morris tries to strike out the side here. The one thing that they do have that Ned kind of points to, and Doug alluded to when he visited with us, is a mixture of some veterans. You know, they're not a real young team, as he mentioned, Tampa Bay, because they do have Sexton and Young, and Jenkins got a few years now.
Well, this is not a ball club that's got to start over. I mean, it's not a wipe the board clean and let's see what we can do in 10 years down the road. I mean, these guys can make the transition, but the only way that you can make a transition with this type of payroll is with good young pitching. That's the only way you can do it.
Great young pitching from Matt Morris. He strikes out the side after his team put 4 more on the board in their half of the 4th. It's still 10-1. Back on day game. Matt Morris, the home run and the walk and scoring last time, waits on deck for Wilson Delgado, the only Cardinal that hasn't reached base so far. John Foster on in relief of Wayne Franklin. Neither one of them have had much success against the Cardinals. Delgado's got 1 hit on the season. As Fernando Vina, with a bad hand, has gone back to St. Louis for examination. It's the end of a 9-game road trip for St. Louis. They can end up victorious at 5-4 if they hold on to this 9-run lead.
We talked a little bit earlier in the ballgame about the depth of the St. Louis Cardinal ball club, and it's got to be comforting for manager Tony La Russa to be able to put some of his guys into the ballgame on a day game after a night game to get some ABs, give some of his everyday players a rest, and to be able to have 10 runs in 4 innings. That's some depth, and that depth is what carries you into the postseason.
2-2 pitch inside, misses. Walks in the long ball have really haunted Milwaukee through the first half of this game. Opposite way, and Delgado has his 2nd hit of the 2003 season.
Another fastball in the middle of the plate, and you think to yourself, well, it's 3-2. I've got to be able to throw a ball in the middle of the plate. The problem is getting to the 3-2. If you're going to throw a ball in the middle of the plate 3-2, why don't you just throw it on the first pitch and see what happens? You know, throw it in there and test him out.
So Wilson Delgado with pretty good speed. Matt Morris walked last time. That set up a big 4th inning. This one, pounded up the middle. Matt Morris is ripping the ball. So not only has he given up just 1 run from the mound, he's reached all 3 times he's batted.
Matt Morris, we talked about it earlier about him being a gamer, whether he's at the plate or on the mound. Fastball belt high on the outside corner, and we've said belt high quite a few times today.
Yes.
And most of the time when you say belt high, it usually ends up in with a base hit or a ball that's going over the fence. We talked about the umpire behind the plate today, Hunter Wendelstedt. He's got a low strike zone. He's giving the pitch down in the zone, but the Milwaukee Brewer pitchers are having a difficult time finding that part of the strike zone.
Foster gets that one over. A breaking pitch to Miguel Cairo. Walked and scored to lead off the game. He's flown out twice. Pitching toed open stance. Miguel out in left field today. In fact, Morris would have a shutout. Miguel hadn't gotten short hopped on a scorching ball by Sexton that got by him.
He got caught in between.
Gary Miller and Jeff Brantley with you from Miller Park in Milwaukee. It is day game, and the Cardinals are in the game. They got their hitting shoes on today.
Well, you're going to make every hitter a great hitter if you pitch behind in the count all the time. And the Milwaukee Brewers pitchers today, Wayne Franklin to start with, and now Foster here. When you pitch behind in the count, not only do you give the hitter a lot more looks at your pitches, but it gives them a safety zone to be able to just absolutely try to waylay any pitch that you throw up there.
Cairo walks for the 2nd time today, and Mike Maddox makes the walk to the mound. We'll talk things over with John Foster, with dangerous hitters prowling and the bases loaded.
The thing about it is, from a pitching perspective, you want to be able to get the guys out at the bottom of the order. The 8, 9, and 1 guys, those are the guys that you've got to put them away, because if they're on base, then you get to Scott Rolen, Albert Pujols, and Eduardo Perez, or in a lot of instances in this lineup, it's Jim Edmonds. That spells trouble.
Well, one of the saving graces is not a lot of people are here to see it. Attendance is down for the 3rd straight year here at Miller Park. In fact, it dipped under an average of 20,000, but it is an afternoon game. But one of the things they're doing to promote and get fans out here is Women on Wednesdays. And today, their featured woman of the day is somebody who you can see tonight on ABC on The Bachelor. Tina is here today as a special guest of the Brewers. Now, I wonder if they'll show this tonight on the bet. Oh, that's her okay. Tina Panis from Milwaukee is one of those competing to be the latest winner of the competition on ABC. That ball is hammered. So again, the mound visit doesn't pay off too well, and Marrero gets on for the first time today, and it turns into a 2-run double.
Leaving balls in the middle of the zone is going to result in pitches that are absolutely scorched. And you can see this pitch right here. Another pitch left right in the middle of the plate. Those are the kind of pitches that get your third baseman hurt.
You know, I'm a little bit surprised, and they have another lefty warming up, Jeff, that with this lineup, with Edmonds and Vigna out of the lineup, that Ned Yost hasn't chosen to turn him around here.
Well, at this point, I think that what you're trying to do is get your young pitchers some work, get them out there, get their feet wet, even though they may be drowning at this point, but just get them in the ball game and let them work some of the kinks out, let them pitch a little bit.
Gaudy numbers for Scott Rolen in this game, in this series. Up to 5 homers and 15 RBIs now. 4 of those RBIs came this afternoon. 2 homers and a double. He scored 3 times. Hit a 2-run shot in the first, hit a 2-run shot last inning. Now he's got a chance with 2 aboard here in the 5th. 12-1 Cardinals.
Every single hitter that comes to the plate for the Cardinals, the count is either 2-0, 3-1 every time they're making contact. That's why you put 10, 11, 12 runs on the board.
Missing up there. He does have a base open, but he's got Pujols on deck, and he's 3 for 3.
Well, at this point in the ballgame, when it's 12-1, the base open issue is, I mean, it's kind of a moot point here. I mean, what you're trying to do is make pitches and get hitters out.
What do you throw 3-1 to roll?
Something down.
Scotty was thinking a 3-homer game.
Well, if he throws another pitch like that one there, when you see a hitter foul the ball straight back, as a pitcher, you know immediately he is right on that pitch, and he's got his timing down. He just missed it.
3-2 to roll. Comes in on him. As we said, he has already put together a huge afternoon. That was in the first. 2-run shot in the 4th. Just missed getting out. He would later come around to score. Actually, that was his 2-run homer in the 4th. He doubled in the 3rd. Now he's got a chance on a 3-2 pitch. Almost went the other way with that one.
Well, Scott Rolen is a guy that you have to work both sides of the plate and get him to alternate where his hand positioning is as he approaches the baseball. If you can get the ball in on him and get him to pull the ball foul, then you can get him out of the way. If you stay away from him, he is going to absolutely kill you.
Marrero and Cairo aboard for Rolen. Called 3rd strike. Rolen thought it was out of the zone. And he may have something under his breath for Hunter Wendelstein. And Hunter's taking his mask off to hear better.
Well, this is a backdoor breaking ball that starts in the left-handed batter's box. Breaks right back over the outside corner. When you're throwing a lot of fastballs and it's a 3-2 count, as a hitter, you're looking for a fastball right there, especially with the way the score is. You got a young pitcher on the mound. That's a nice pitch right there. But the thing about it is, if you're Foster, you've got to do that earlier in the count. You can't wait till it's 3-2 and they fouled off 17 pitches to finally break out your curveball.
Now he faces Albert Pujols, who's 3 for 3 himself. He scored twice, knocked in a run. Albert is a guy who they weren't sure until they were done with batting practice today he'd be in the opening lineup. Might have seen Orlando Palmeiro today if Albert hadn't been ready.
Maybe what they should do is just start every hitter with a 2-0 count, because it's going to be that way anyway.
It's unbelievable.
The thing about it is, if you're a pitcher, you want the hitters to see the least amount of pitches from you as possible. Work the ball down in the zone, throw strikes, throw strike 1 right off the bat. If you're good enough to pitch in the big leagues, you can throw the ball over the plate for strike one. The reason that you don't is because you're scared.
Well, the very first pitch he threw was a strike, and Eduardo Perez put it over the fence.
The thing about a lot of young pitchers is what they end up doing is they come up to the big leagues. They're nervous anyway, which is that's part of the game. But they get out there and try to throw the ball too hard, try to make their curveball too good. They end up leaving the ball up in the zone, which is what Foster did to Perez, and the ball gets absolutely shellacked. And then you're standing on the mound thinking, wow, that was the best pitch. That was the hardest pitch I could throw. Your perception is totally off. And then you start walking guys, and then you're out there wondering, what am I doing? Why I should be in AAA. Well, then you've got a negative attitude, and then you're not going to get anybody in.
Perez waiting on deck behind Pujols. Just one out here. And 2 runs already in the 5th. 2-1-3-4-2. That's not a login on your computer. It's line score.
Then we see a breaking ball right there on the 2-2 pitch that looked like it was a strike. But if you're throwing the ball all over the place, you're not going to get borderline pitching. You can forget it.
Well, not far from us back here. The fans are making great grabs here. The line drive back towards the press box. Only 30 batters now, Pujols being the 30th Cardinal to come in there today. Only 12 have seen first pitch strikes. Pujols out in front of that one. Jenkins drifting. He's on the warning track, and that should bring in another run as Cairo scoots home. But the big news for Milwaukee is they got their second out here. So a baker's dozen on the board. Want to remind you, coming up tonight, the NBA regular season winding down. It's the final day of the regular season, and the last game for Michael Jordan. We'll have it for you here on ESPN. The Wizards are in Philadelphia to take on Allen Iverson and the Sixers. Then at 10, it's the Kings in Utah against the Jazz. The NBA playoffs begin this week. For more on NBA action, log on to ESPN.com. Pujols knocks in his second run of the game as Cairo comes in. Another walk has scored. Cairo scored twice on walks today. 13-1. Eddie Perez, who greeted Foster with a 2-run homer last inning.
So he starts him out with a breaking ball for a strike right here. I think this is the first hitter we've seen in a couple innings where the count was actually 0-1.
Sky high pop toward the seats, well back over the Cardinal dugout.
The thing about it, Gary, is if you pitch ahead in the count, you change the hitter's swing. He's not as aggressive. He's a little more defensive at the plate, and you don't get those off the back leg kind of swings where the guy looks like he's going to spin himself in the ground. You pitch ahead in the count, you're going to get a decelerated bat.
Eduardo Perez steps out. 0-2 with 2 outs here in the 5th and a man at second. 3 runs in for the Cardinals. I was talking to Eduardo before the game, and obviously a lot of players are concerned about what happened in Chicago last night with the latest attack, with the Royals in town, ironically enough. And one of the things that Bobby Valentine, the Baseball Tonight crew, mentioned is in Japan they've got chicken wire around the stands. And Eduardo had remembered that. And he said the fans are actually kind of crazy in Japan. He played over there in 2001.
They can get crazy. But I think that anywhere that you are, you have to have some semblance of trust in mankind that some clown is not going to run out onto the field. And, you know, I would imagine that, you know, we could probably have steel gates all the way around, and we could live in brick houses all the time too. But you have to have some kind of faith in your fellow man that he's not going to run out onto the field and lose his mind.
Up and into Eduardo. But one of the things I think, Jeff, would make a big difference is you've just got to have, I think, security similar to what you see at a concert. You know, you see those guys in the big yellow windbreakers. You're not storming the stage, or you're going to pay a pretty heavy price.
And I think at this point in our country and all over the world, a security issue is it's a lot more prevalent than what it's been in the past. I mean, I think that's something that is on everybody's mind every single day, not just from a crime perspective, but from altogether perspective. You just don't ever know what you're going to get.
We've actually been very fortunate. I mean, it's been ridiculous what these guys have done, but it could have been a lot worse.
Well, I think when you start looking at it from the player security side, where do you draw the line of what's going to happen in a ball game?
And it looks like Ned Yost has drawn the line with that walk to Eduardo Perez. He's going to have a new pitcher to face Edgar Renteria when he comes in. We'll be back here on Day Game after this.
ESPN's Day Game, brought to you by AIG. For insurance, loans, retirement, AIG. We know money. And Comcast.
We're back with 2 aboard, 2 outs here in the 5th. A 13-1 St. Louis lead. Now Matt Ford. It's hard to distinguish these guys, Jeff. All 3 are lefties. All 3 begin with F.
And they're all pitching behind in the count.
Yeah, a grade of F for the first 2 so far today. See what Matt Ford can come through with. And his first batter is going to drive in a run off him. So Renteria greets him with a 2-out RBI single. 14-1.
Well, this is a day where every hitter in the Cardinal lineup is boosting their batting average. Cardinals already swinging the bat quite well coming into this ball game. They have absolutely teed off on the young left-handed pitching for the Milwaukee Brewers. You want to see home runs? We got home runs for you.
Runs, 14 hits, and an error, and 14 on the bottom for the Brewers as well, but there's a space in between their 1 and 4.
This reminds me of that Bugs Bunny cartoon with the big guys just running around the bases.
Yeah. Whack, whack. And then the offense, 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what happens when you have a young pitcher facing a Matt Morris, and the Brewers got behind early, and you get behind and give Matt Morris this kind of lead. He can make some hitters look really silly.
They're building. They had 2 in the first, 1 in the second, 3 in the third, 4 in the fourth. If they keep this pattern up, they should get another run this inning, because they got 3 in the third, 4 in the fourth, and they've got 4 so far in the 5th.
14 hits, 14 runs. That's pretty efficient.
That's very efficient baseball. Rolls away from Eddie Perez. One more thought. I was talking to Albert Pujols before the game, and we were talking about the security issue that we were getting into before the break, Jeff. You know, a thought I had, bring the canine dogs out. Have a canine dog on the corner of each dugout and let him loose on a guy when he comes on the field.
Then you run the risk of a liability lawsuit.
I don't know. The guy him is trespassing.
Putting a hammer on you.
I mean, those dogs are trained to, just do a certain amount of work. It would discourage people from coming out there. Sky high pop to left, and the inning is thankfully over. In the Brewers' belief, at least. Matt Morris has a 13-run cushion on Day Game. ESPN flashback to 1982. Cardinals Brewers meant World Series. And Charlie Moore and Gantner and Ned Yost was on that team. In fact, he would play in this game against John Stuper. In his only at bat, he walked. But those were the glory days for Milwaukee. The problem is, if we look at Ozzie Smith and his vintage play defensively, Keith Hernandez at first base. It's been 21 years now, and that's the last time they were in a postseason.
One flag.
It's time. They should have made it bigger. So when they got there, they got room for a lot more up there, and they're optimistic. The other good thing is that logo's no more. I was not a fan of that logo on the hat.
They got a little work to do here.
Yeah. Look at that thing.
Got a little work to do.
Now that's good. A little barley on the hat with the classic M. Rolling. And again, Morris is moving over there, but Pujols are taking himself. They get Sanchez out for the first time today.
Well, this is, you would like to believe that from a starting pitcher standpoint, and talking about Matt Morris, that you love to have a lot of offense on your.
They're still trying to figure out the Cardinals side of that thing. This is much easier to figure out Milwaukee's side.
You'd like to have a lot of offense, but sometimes you get a little bit too much. And I know that sitting in the dugout is not really what you want to do from a starting pitcher standpoint. You want to pitch, come back in, score a couple runs, get back out there. And a lot of times when you sit in the dugout too long, as we see Matt Morris throw a couple of balls here, you lose your edge a little bit. You lose your stuff. You get a little bit off kilter on your mechanics, and your arm gets a little bit tight. Makes a lot of difference. I don't think that we're going to see Matt pitch this whole ball game, simply because he's had to sit in that dugout a lot longer than he normally would.
Eric Young out of the game. And Enrique Cruz is pinch hitting. as Ned Yost gets a look at some of his other players now. Morse has got to finish this inning to get his first win of the year, make it an official game. Enrique baffled on that. They got a little piece of it to foul away.
Well, this is the kind of ball game where if you're Ned Yost, you want to get some guys in the ball game and get them some playing time. Get them out there, see what they can do, try to get their feet wet a little bit, and I think that's why we're seeing a lot of the young left-handers get in this ball game.
They hustle him down the line, but eventually will throw him out for the second out here in the fifth. 2 away in the fifth with Sexton coming up. A reminder that ESPN Sunday Night Baseball presented by Nextel. John Miller and Joe Morgan come to you from Network Associates Coliseum in Oakland. Miguel Tejada against Alex Rodriguez. It's the A's and Rangers at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Don't forget that game is also available on ESPN's new high-definition service, ESPN HD. It's the big picture in sports. Sexton's been on twice. Walked. He's the one that hit that ball that ate up Miguel Cairo in left field. It was an error on Cairo, so there was no RBI. Sexton now up to 315. Homered last night, his 4th. Milwaukee won their first home game, but it looks like it's going to be their only home win by the time this series is over. Scott Rolen, one of the future stars for Doug Melvin and Ned Yost, who had a good spring, earned his way onto this roster. He's waiting to pinch hit if Sexton can get on.
Sometimes in this ball game, from a managerial side, you go to your everyday players and say, hey, I want to give you a breather, but give you the rest of the game off. That way you don't have to give them a day off tomorrow or another day or somewhere down the line. You take the rest of this day off, and guys will give you different answers. You know, you'll see Jeff Jenkins maybe pull out of this lineup, but a guy like Richie Sexton may stay in. It depends on how they feel, how they're swinging the bat, what they feel like, what they want to do.
Pitch is around Sexton again. Second time he's walked today. And now he will get to see Scott Rolen. Yeah, it's kind of hard to keep your edge when suddenly you've got a 13-run lead. And he hasn't spent all of his time in the dugout. He's been around the bases 3 times with a home run. He's scored twice as well with a single and a walk.
Well, you want to, as a starting pitcher, you want to try to keep yourself in the game as much as you can, but it's difficult in these kind of games.
Cairo coming towards the line. Looks like he's got room and makes it in foul territory. So, but Sednick first pitch swinging, taps out to left. So they stranded another runner. And Morris is coasting. 14-1 St. Louis here on day game. The Cardinals in a rout of the Brewers. Scott Rolen came in for Jeff Jenkins, pinch hit and fouled out to left field, and now he's out there playing it. And Enrique Cruz hit for Eric Young, and he's at second base now behind Matt Ford. Wayne Franklin started the game, and John Foster, and now Matt Ford. None of them has had very good success, as Wilson Delgado singled last time up and scored.
Well, as we've seen, pitching behind in the count is no easy way to make a living.
This is low there. The Cardinals got 2 in the first, 1 in the second, 3 in the third, 4 in the fourth, 4 in the fifth. The last time St. Louis scored a run in every inning was September 13th of 1964 at Wrigley. Our indispensable Peter Pasquarelli passes on to us.
They're going to set a record Brewer-wise for pitching behind in the count for the most ever.
Lefties whose last name begins in Ford, in F, pitching, you know, behind in the count. But they do get it out here to start an inning. We're at Miller Park here on day game. Gary Miller and Jeff Brantley with you, as the Cardinals are looking to take 2 out of 3 before they head home. It would be 5-4 on this road trip if they wrap up this game. Hard to imagine they won't, as Matt Morris has homered today for his own cause. Walked and singled. He scored 3 times. The big story has been Scotty Rolen. 2 2-run homers, a double. He scored 3 times himself.
You got to love being able to come to the ballpark and put this kind of offensive production on the board without Tino Martinez without Jim Edmonds in the lineup. J.D. Drew still on the DL. It just shows the strength of your bench when you can come out and put these kind of runs on the board in this kind of fashion with trying to get some ABs for your guys that are normally guys that play off the bench for you.
Talk about crooked numbers.
This is a bad.
What's that one doing up there in the second inning?
This is a bad.
What happened that inning?
Bad day at the office.
That one was Morris's home run in the second inning.
You know, they haven't even gotten Matt out today. He's getting them out, and they can't get him out.
Well, that fourth inning is when it really turned into a disaster. They had gotten 3 in the third, but Morris was behind 0-2, and they walked it in the fourth. Then they got a couple of outs, and then Rolen peppered his second 2-run homer.
Well, this just shows the inexperience of this staff, and we talked to Doug Melvin about this as part of the growing process when you start to make changes in your organization, and you're going to have some days where guys are not going to pitch very well.
He strikes out Matt Morris. I want to remind you this copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the Office of the Commissioner of Baseball and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without express written consent. MLB.com has the widest selection of items for the team you love. Shop MLB.com, the official site of wearing your heart on your sleeve, cap, pullover, and lots more. MLB.com. Saw a couple of throwback jerseys. Saw an old Milwaukee Brewers Robin Yount jersey not too far below the announce booth as we reflected on that 82 World Series of the last inning. That's a long dry spell. Oh. This is a long game. But hey, they get 3 up and 3 down. Well, wonders never cease. A 1-2-3 inning, and here come the Brewers in the bottom of the 6th. Mike Maddox not too happy with the Brewer pitching staff today. The Cardinals have roughed them up for 14 runs. John Vanderwall steps in, the Brewers right fielder, who's 0 for 1 today with a walk and a strikeout. Matt Morris still coasting along.
Well, you'd like to believe that this organization is heading in a different direction than they have been in the last 17 years, but it's going to take some teaching, take some patience, some personnel changes, but I think they've got the right guy in the right place with Ned Yost. I think he brings an added element that they haven't had here in a while.
Chopper by Vanderwall, who shares a love of NASCAR racing with his manager, does John Vanderwall. And the big reason that Yost is a NASCAR fan is Dale Earnhardt.
The most fierce competitor I've ever met in my life. He was focused, he was dedicated, he was disciplined, and he fought hard to win every second that he was competing. And that's the same thing that we're trying to do here. And all those things I learned from Dale. I mean, being with Dale, the years that I was with Dale, and then get a chance to watch Dale when he was fighting for a 7th championship. I mean, those are lessons that I learned that are helping me right now to this day, that I live by every day.
That's why he wears number 3 in honor of his friend. He wanted to do it when he was in Atlanta. Of course, Dale Murphy kind of made that difficult to do in Atlanta.
The Murph.
He actually met Dale Earnhardt through Jody Davis. They're big hunting fans. As Ford hits for himself and strikes out looking here in the 6th.
Well, as you hear Ned Yost talking about his relationship with Dale Earnhardt, it's amazing how sports mentality can cross all boundaries. And when you're competing, I guess competing on a different level, whether it's NASCAR racing or whether it's in the baseball world, you still want to be a tough mental guy, and you want to challenge for the brass ring every single time. And I think that's part of what Ned's talking about, and being able to listen and learn and approach things from that kind of perspective. I think that's part of what you do as a player. You want to be able to learn and take a little bit from each guy that you talk with or watch and see, and put that into yourself. Don't try to copy somebody else. Just take a little piece from everybody you come across with.
Eddie Perez gives it a ride, but pulls it foul in the left field corner. One of the things that Ned told me before the game about Earnhardt, who he had a chance to work in his pit crew in 1994 during the baseball strike, but he said that Earnhardt was a big Braves fan, And if there's any blessing that Dale's no longer with us, is that Dale was dying to manage a game. He didn't understand why Ned couldn't get him to sit next to Bobby Cox and manage a game. He said, you just can't do it. He said, well, if I had a problem, I'd just call Bill France, you know, if I wanted to get you to do something. Well, he talked to Bud Selig, but you can't get in the dugout. He said if Dale was still with us today, he'd be calling every day to tell Ned what he did wrong, giving him advice. And he'd want to be in the dugout in uniform.
In the dugout. But it's funny, you can get guys on the pit crew, but nobody's sitting in that dugout.
Well, I remember Mike Fratello used to be the bat boy for Tom Minnesota in the Dodger Stadium. But apparently Ned just said, I guess he just understood that his other great friend Bobby Cox wouldn't be interested in Dale's opinion of what was going on in Turner Field.
Well, Bobby Cox is all business. And it's amazing when you play against the Atlanta Braves as long as I did, and then have an opportunity to look at it from this perspective on TV. It's amazing the respect that his players have for him, and also the job that he does. Everybody just assumes that they were great because they had Glavine, Maddox, and Smoltz, and there's a little more to it than just a couple of good pitchers.
Eddie Perez hanging in there, 90-mile-an-hour fastball. You know, it would be as if when Ned helped out in the pit crew and got to know what the NASCAR season was all about for Dale Earnhardt in '94, on his way to his 7th NASCAR championship that year, though I suppose Ned feels a part of that. But if he had put on these headsets and been the crew chief that day, I don't think Dale would have gone for that.
Well, it's a little different. A little different than you know, going out and managing when you have to actually call the shots. I mean, it's a totally different story when you're changing a tire versus calling strategy.
The 101st pitch by Matt Morris as he works in the 6th here. Royce Clayton has walked and struck out. Last night Royce hit his 4th home run. Goes the other way with it. If it stays fair, it's trouble. Foul ball. Very young. Taking a look right down the line there.
When you look at Royce Clayton and you see the way that he's swinging the bat, the reason that he is so good offensively right now is being able to hit the ball the other way like that. He stayed inside the ball and kept his head on the ball. A lot of times when Royce gets in trouble, it's because he's pulling off the baseball, and that makes him really susceptible to breaking pitches. But right there, you see that fastball that he took right down the right field line. If he can do that all the time, he's going to have a productive year.
Well, the other interesting thing, there were some Clayton takes that pitch. Some jukebox music issues when he was with the Rangers, especially with Chad Curtis, that had a lot of public notoriety to it. Probably overblown a bit, but one of the things that Ned Yost put into the locker room, no radio in the clubhouse. And if they're gonna have it, they went 0-6, and they said, Skip, can we play some music in here? And he said, okay, but it's got to be low enough that we can talk in here. I want you guys talking baseball. Deep in the hole, Renteria gonna get the lead runner. What a play! Even with a 13-run lead, Renteria playing like it's a 1-run game. They strand a runner. 14-1.
ESPN's Day Game, brought to you by New Suave for Men. Great performance, great price, just for guys. And 1010-220. No need to sign up. Just dial 1010-220.
Yeah, and they're bringing it around. Even if they had counted all 4 of those guys as they crossed home, the Brewers would still be losing 14-5. One of the highlights here of County Stadium and now Miller Park. The meat races. Got a bratwurst, a frank, a knockwurst. I'm not sure, what is the 4th thing? An Italian sausage, how could I forget? Or is it a Polish sausage? It's probably a Polish sausage, no Milwaukee, right? That Marrero flies out to right. These are the things that we're seriously considering now in a 14-1 game.
Exactly.
That's what it's disintegrated to. I've always said that in addition to those giant meat products, they should have a giant grill waiting for them in the right field corner out there.
The sizzle. Well, at least Ford has come in and thrown some strikes. He actually put a 0 up there.
That was it. So it's still since 1964. Our great note passed down by Peter Pasquarelli. The last time the Cardinals scored in every inning, September 13th, 1964 at Wrigley. That's safe. I think Peter's hoping that they don't score again in any inning today. But Scotty Rolen may add to a great total base total today.
I'm sure Ned Yost is hoping the same.
I would think that's correct, and Doug Melvin.
But out of any of these ball games, especially when a game gets to this point, you've got to be able, from a managerial standpoint, to find something good in this game. And if you can get a kid out there like Ford that's pitching now and get him in the ball game and get him some decent innings in where he can build some confidence, then that in itself is worth this ball game, because this club has got to develop some young pitchers that have got some confidence to go out there and throw some strikes and pitch ahead of the count, or they're going to have a lot of days like this.
They've actually gotten Rolen on consecutive at-bats, although that ball was hit so hard it had a tail on it, but Vanderwall was there. Just over 12,000 here in the seats, joining you in the audience here on Day Game on ESPN.
The one thing about a game like this, if you can keep the ball around the strike zone, you're going to get a lot more calls, at least from the umpire standpoint.
Looks like they're all going to right, and Vanderwall will make all 3 putouts here. Another 3-up, 3-down inning. Hey, they've retired 7 in a row. Can they find any offense? Anybody besides the Sausages cross home? We'll see. Now we showed you the Polish Sausage running around the bases last half inning, and now here's the Polish wonder, Bernie Brewer, getting down up there in Bernie's dugout, high above the left field bleachers. You know, we hear roll out the barrel, Jeff. We had Bob Uecker here. He was here for the ceremony on Monday when they honored the 50th anniversary of the Braves' first game here in Milwaukee. And Andy Pafko, who played for the Brooklyn Dodgers and the Cubs and also the Braves, had his accordion out. It was accompanying that get-together. Cal Eldred in the game now, the longtime Milwaukee Brewer, dating back to the American League days, comes on in relief.
You think Bernie Brewer has a mustache like that because Riley Fingers pitched here?
That could be.
Or did he go way beyond that?
Well, you know, Bob Uecker speculated that's why Doug Melvin got his job, because he's got a Bernie Brewer mustache, and that they're actually the same person. Keith Ginter gives it a ride. Marrero in center field hauls it in on the warning track.
Seems to me that if you can see a mustache from behind someone, it's a little too big.
Matt Morris went 6, gave up 5 hits. The run was unearned. He did walk 4, but he struck out 7 in a tidy 104 pitches to pick up his first win of the year. And the fact that he was winless, some of that was based on some bad luck in his first couple outings.
Well, bad luck, and when you're a #1 starter, you're facing somebody else's #1, and you know you have to have a few breaks and things go your way. And Matt Morris had to pitch into the 9th inning in his last start against the Houston Astros. Ended up giving up the home run to Jeff Kent and cost him the ball game.
Alex Sanchez, who had gotten on the first 2 times, went to be called off and left by Cairo, who's had a bit of an adventure out there. You know, we talked about that play against the Astros at the juice box.
Well, Isringhausen is on the DL, so Morris has to pitch into the 9th inning, even though it's early in the season, and left to pitch in the fat part of the plate to Jeff Kent. And in that ballpark at Enron with that short left field porch, you don't want to leave too many balls to the power hitters in the heart of the plate.
Jeff Kent has made a big difference in that Houston lineup, but nothing makes a difference against the Giants this year. I was with them on Monday at Pacific Bell, and the Giants just keep rolling. They've only lost once this year. Best start in team history.
They're putting a lot of offensive numbers, and the thing about that club so far is they have pitched outstanding without Rob Nint. Even though they did change managers from Dusty Baker to Alou, but the one thing that they did keep was Dave Righetti as the pitching coach.
They got 6 saves out of Tim Worrell. I mean, what a rejuvenation he's had in San Francisco.
Well, he's pitched very well, and part of that process is putting guys in the right spot. That's why I'm not a real big fan of the bullpen by committee, because I think you're stretching people too thin.
Enrique Cruz looks at strike 3, so Cal Eldred with a 1-2-3 inning. We'll visit with Bernie in his haunt when we come back in the 8th at Miller Park. All right, Bernie, hold on. We're back on Day Game. Cardinals up 14-1 despite going down in order in consecutive innings. Now Eduardo Perez against Matt Ford here in the 8th. We've made it to the 8th, Jeff.
We have made it to the 8th.
Thanks for that analysis. That's the best thing you've said all day. You spend all night in the hotel thinking of that one? Oh. You were just waiting for the 8th inning to use that, weren't you?
You know, when I see pitchers give up 14 runs, it throws me for a loop. I just can't take it.
Eduardo Perez likes it. The first pitch he saw from John Foster went out. He homered last night. He doesn't want to leave Miller Park, except from the plate. Wayne Franklin, our starter, went 3 2/3, gave up 9 hits and 9 runs, struck out 2 and walked 3. Foster in an inning gave up 3 hits, 5 runs, 3 walks, and a strikeout. By comparison, Matt Ford's been spectacular.
Well, the biggest thing that Matt Ford's done is throwing strikes. There's no difference in the hitters that are coming to the plate. He's actually pitching ahead in the count. Tried to talk about this the whole ball game. If you're going to pitch behind in the count as a pitcher, you're going to get hammered.
You know, we said we'd hear from Bernie, but where is Bernie? The dugout is empty, way above there in left field, up at the top of his slide. Well, you get familiar with the traditions here at Miller Park. He goes into hibernation when the other team's batting. He can't even look. He doesn't want to look.
There's a lot of people that didn't want to look. They're Brewers fans today watching this pitching exhibition.
It's been an expedition.
Yeah. Expedition.
A few people were lost on.
Couldn't get it out of my mouth.
Perez going after that high pitch. When Doug Melvin, the GM, visited us way back in the 4th inning, he said if this thing keeps up, and that was a bad inning, I'll be jumping off of Bernie's dugout.
He said he was going to slide down the slide.
Well, I asked him if he'd ever slid down. He said no. I said, you've never slid down there? He said, if this keeps up, I'm going to jump off the thing. And he goes the other way and bloops it into right field, and he's humming. John Vanderwall finally gets it out, but Perez with a stand-up double.
Eduardo Perez is a guy that Tony loves to use him late in the ball game, but now at this part of the season, especially after having spring training and sitting a lot, as you see him take this ball inside out the ball, hit the ball the other way, guarding against the outside pitch. But Eduardo Perez is not a guy that's going to get 500 ABs. He's going to get 150, 200 ABs, most of them in a pinch hit role, and you've got to be able to handle that. And how you handle that is being able to get consistent ABs once or twice a week, and Tony La Russa is great at that. Not just giving his everyday players a day off every once in a while, but also getting guys that he has to count on in the 8th and 9th innings to get crucial hits, ABs, in games like this.
Eduardo hit 6 home runs off left-handed pitchers last year. Sky-high pop. Vanderwall should have a chance for this as he gets near the seats in the corner. Perez is going to stay. Renteria pops out foul to right field. And finally, a righty warming up. Luis Vizcaino from Milwaukee. Might get in a little work. Here's Mike Matheny. Matheny has a 2-run double. That came in the 3rd inning. He's flown out twice and lined to Sexton at first. The ball that might have kept that 4th inning alive.
In a ball game like this, normally your everyday catcher will be out of the game when the starting pitcher comes out, just to give him a couple innings or a couple innings of rest. But in Matheny's case, there is no backup. His backup is playing center field today, and the backup to the backup is on the DL. I was talking with Walt Jocketty about that the other day in Colorado, trying to see what they're going to do if they do have a situation where Joe Girardi can't come back, because your backup catcher is usually not going to have much playing time. You've got to keep him in an emergency situation. He's usually the last guy off the bench. Well, Marrero is the guy that Tony uses all the time in different positions in the outfield. It's going to be a situation that we'll be watching quite carefully.
Very crowded disabled list for St. Louis. And a couple of guys nicked up in this series as well. And Fernando Vino with a bad hand is back in St. Louis having an exam, and he's not even here today. Pujols bruised his palm and has a bad elbow. Actually, it's kind of the meat of his thumb there on his hand. He got hit by a Curtis Leskanik pitch in the opening game of this series. Edmonds takes the day off. He's a guy that has a lot of injury problems. He's fairly healthy. J.D. Drew is banged up again this year. But I think their biggest concern is Jason Isringhausen. Base hit up the middle of center field. They're going to send him, and Perez will score easily on the base hit by Matheny, so he knocks in his 3rd run of the game.
I think you're exactly right, Gary. I think the biggest concern in the Cardinal organization right now is Jason Isringhausen. They've got some ability to cover themselves. Tell you what, this guy, you know, it's amazing what fresh legs will do for you from a catcher standpoint, allow you to be able to hit. And as you get into the season, your legs start to get tired, and when your legs get tired, your back gets tired in a hurry.
Wilson Delgado filling in for Bina today. He's 1 for 4.
We were talking about Isringhausen earlier that he had a throwing session in Colorado that didn't go so well, so he had a setback. And, you know, at this point, I don't know that there's a determination actually when he is going to come back. You start dealing with shoulder problems, you just, the one thing that you know is you just don't know.
Right. I think the Cardinals probably have an advantage, or at least as good a setup as any team in the division in terms of starting pitching, if that can get healthy, and certainly their offense and their defense. But if Isringhausen isn't here, as Delgado pops to center, that's one advantage that teams like Houston with Dotel and Wagner and the Cubs with their incredibly deep bullpen may have an advantage over St. Louis.
Well, I think you're exactly right. I think the winner of this Central Division is going to be the team that pitches the best day in and day out, because I think that the Cubs have some great arms, but you know, they're in a situation too without Alfonseca that they're going to struggle in that bullpen unless somebody can step forward.
You know what's amazing, Jeff? The Cubs, who are winning today against Cincinnati 7-2, even though Pryor got beat up yesterday. I don't think I've ever seen a pitching staff, you can probably speak better to this, I was talking to Rick Sutcliffe about it on Monday, of power 1 through 10. I mean, you take Estes out of the equation, they got 8 or 9 95-mile-an-hour pitchers.
It seems like everybody that they run out there has a tremendous arm, just like you say. Now, these are young arms, and I don't know that they have the full grasp of the art of pitching, but the mistakes that they make are 95-mile-an-hour mistakes, and they don't get hammered as much. Well, they've got 2 or 3 guys in the minor leagues that have as good arms as the guys that they have in the big leagues. This Cubs organization is loaded with pitching right now, and it may be the time that we see the Cubs in the playoffs again, especially with Dusty Baker as their manager.
The arm that gets kind of lost in the Pryor Wood discussion. Carlos Zambrano's going today, and going down on strikes is Cal Eldred, but he's got a comfortable lead to pitch with when we come back in the bottom of the 8th with Bernie. Back in the bottom of the 8th on day game here. Gary Miller and Jeff Brantley joining you as the day is done for Scott Rolen. I think he's done enough, Jeff, with 2 2-run homers, a double and a run. He scored 3 times, knocked in 4. And St. Louis has made some change. I'm kind of surprised that Jim Edmonds, who had the day off, has come in to play center field. Kerry Robinson's now out in left field. Eduardo Perez, who was in right field, has moved over to third base, and Cairo, who was out in left field, is at second base. Assume that Robinson will hit 2 and Edmonds 3. I'm not positive about that yet, but we'll let you know.
That's the one thing about this Cardinals ball club. All of their bench players are very versatile. You have a guy like Marrero that can play all over the outfield and be able to catch. A guy like Eduardo Perez that can play in the outfield and also third base and first base. And Cairo, the same thing, a middle infielder that can also play the outfield. It gives you a lot of choices as a manager of things that you need or want to do to be able to give your guys a day off.
Sexton pounds that ball. Delgado has moved over. I knew that didn't look like Renteria. So there's yet another change as Wilson Delgado, who started the game for Bina at second base, is now your shortstop and makes that play on Richie Sexton. Scott Podsednik, who came on to pinch hit for Jeff Jenkins and fouled out to third base back in the 5th, gets his second at bat of the game against Cal Eldred, the longtime Brewer, still in the game in relief for St. Louis. Pitching out of the bullpen these days after having his arm reconstructed. He was really pitching great for the Chicago White Sox in 2000 when that arm blew out on him.
Well, he's been through a lot of surgeries. It's nice to be able to see a guy go through all of those things that he's been through arm-wise and still be able to get back out on the mound and compete.
15-1 St. Louis in the 8th.
But as Tony La Russa changes out his order, Ned Yost is doing the same. It's all, I wouldn't call it tryouts, but there's a lot of guys that you try to get in this kind of ball game and see what they can do.
Eldred gets Podsednik looking for his second strikeout. Eldred perfect through. There's Bernie Brewer. Now, Bernie, as all good mascots, doesn't speak. But yeah, he's checking out. Check out the mustachio of my Doug Melvin. Apparently, he's watching our broadcast, Jeff. Bob Uecker made a reference to that.
He may not talk, but he can sure hear.
Uecker told us when he visited us back in the 3rd inning, he said it's the same person. That's just Doug puts on that outfit. He also said that's not a costume, though. That's just him. That's the way he looks. If you missed that, it was worth watching a 15-1 game to see Bob Uecker way back when. All right, so if you're scoring at home, here's what's happened. Edmonds has come in the game. Marrero's in right now, so he moves from center to right. Kerry Robinson's out in left field now. Perez moves from right field over to third base. Delgado moves from second to short. Cairo moves from left to second. Pujols and Matheny are still where they belong. Robinson gives chase to the wall, looks up over his head. It's gone. John Vanderwall. And now we'll see Bernie go to work. Woo!
So what exactly is the purpose of that slide? Fans like it.
Excitement.
Fans like it.
You know, that's almost like the guys who spike the ball and celebrate and strike the pose on a first down when they're down 41-0 in a football game.
Exactly.
Peter Pasquarelli adding to our broadcast again. Says it's like Michael Jordan being introduced. Well, Michael Jordan will be on our air. His final game ever, if he keeps to his word, as he plays in Philadelphia tonight on ESPN against the Sixers.
Brady Clark batting. I actually rode on the airplane with this young man coming into town. He was coming from Raleigh-Durham and had to take a 4:30 flight from his AAA club to get to the big leagues.
Brady Clark called up when Jeffrey Hammonds damaged his ankle. First game of the series on Monday, and Jeffrey's back on the disabled list. Place he's all too familiar with.
As we left the airport, I told him, you better get some rest because Matt Morris is pitching tomorrow. And his response to me was,
who's he?
I don't care. I'm ready.
I'm just glad to be in the big leagues. He was actually rehabbing after spring training.
When you're young, you just want to be here.
He's got the hitter's count. Vanderbilt was the first guy to reach off Eldred. Retired the first 5 in order. Now with 2 outs, he's got a 3-1 count. Now, come on. You said the guy's anxious to get in the big leagues. He's taken on 3-1.
He's creating an opportunity right here. He's trying to get a pitch that he likes. That was a great pitch right there by Eldred. 3-1 pitch right on the black, right on the knees on the outside part. If he swings at that right there, he's got a ground ball to second base.
3-2 pitch with 2 outs in the 8th, and Clark will be on with a walk. This is why Brady Clark is in the lineup today. This is on Monday. Jeffrey Hammonds trying to climb the wall, and he couldn't get to that home run. What's remarkable, Jeff, is that he stayed in the game for a while. Ankles have been a tough thing for the Brewers the last 2 summers. Jeff Jenkins' injury was tough to watch, the way that they twisted around. Couldn't quite see it on that videotape, but it was on the front page of the paper Tuesday. His ankle was pointing the exact opposite direction and when it hit that wall. When you start talking about players being injured, that's the one thing that a club like the Milwaukee Brewers or the Pittsburgh Pirates are clubs that are in the middle of the road money-wise. They can't afford for one of their star players to go down. They don't have anyone to replace him. Whereas we see with the Cardinals here today, if they have an injury or they have somebody out of the lineup, they've got some replacements that can actually lessen the blow. When you're a club that struggles financially, you can't afford to lose one of your star guys. It'll totally rip your club apart. You know, amazing too. Their best player, Albert Pujols, He's over at first. He could play third. He could play left. They actually played him at short one game last year. I mean, he epitomizes what Tony's got.
But this ball club with Milwaukee is a totally different ball club when they don't have Jeff Jenkins. And not only his presence in the lineup, but his presence in the locker room. I mean, these guys respond to his aggressive behavior on the field and also in the locker room, and I think it makes their club a much better club. It's definitely a different lineup. I mean, you're only talking about Richie Sexton when he's out, and now you've got this guy in there. It makes a difference. I mean, I think it makes a big change.
Here's the USC Trojan. It's for a high average, has some power as well. Yeah, they're very thin. But if Ned can put out his everyday lineup, which he likes, you know, he loves Sanchez as the leadoff man if he can learn how to run the bases. Eric Young's a good contact hitter. Then it sets up Sexton and Jenkins. Vanderwall's hitting there today with Hammond's injury, but he likes Helms where he's hitting. And one of the things that's really interesting, Jeff, is that he's put Clayton. Well, we'll talk about this when we come back in the ninth. But why he has chosen to hit Royce Clayton eighth? Clayton will have to do that in the bottom of the ninth. He gets stuck on deck with the Perez strikeout. 15-2 now. ESPN day game back at Miller Park for the ninth inning. The Cardinals up 15-2, and the Brewers have made a couple of changes. Brady Clark stays in the game, and he'll go out to right field where John Vanderwall was previously patrolling. I mentioned to you that the Brewers have also changed pitchers. Mike DeJean, the first righty that the Cardinals are going to see after facing Franklin, Foster, and Ford from the left side. Now, why would you bring your closer into a game that you're down by 13 runs?
Well, every closer has got to have some type of consistent work, and if your ball club is not winning, or if there's no safe situations, a lot of times you're not going to be in the ball game. But after 2 or 3 days of sitting in the bullpen, you've got to get in the game. And even though this is not the greatest time for adrenaline to get in the ball game, especially for a closer, you've got to be able to get out there and get some work. And for a lot of guys, Gary, this is the time where the closers end up giving up runs. I know that last year for John Smoltz, the time that he got hit the hardest were in ball games that were really out of hand by the time he got in there.
Mike DeJean has not pitched since Arizona on April 12th. You know, the Brewers are coming off a couple of good series. Beat the Pirates and the Diamondbacks 2 out of 3, but they're going to lose 2 out of 3 here, and this one is not a good way to end the series.
Well, part of the reason that they won those series is the fact that they pitched well. And as we've seen today, this has not been a very well pitched ball game from the Brewers side.
Our starter today, Wayne Franklin, beat Randy Johnson his last time out. The worst game of Johnson's career.
And I think that you're going to have that with young pitchers and inexperienced pitchers. Even though Wayne Franklin may be 26 years old, experience in the big leagues is what counts. And without having that, that's when you're very inconsistent.
Cairo rolls one to Clayton for the first out. Mentioned it last half inning, and it's coming up for you tonight at 7 Eastern time. Michael Jordan's last game. The Wizards are in Philadelphia to take on Iverson and the Sixers. Part of our special doubleheader at 10. The Kings are in Utah to take on the Jazz. In between, we got the NBA shoot-around. We'll react to this last day of the regular season. Also, the playoffs are coming up on ESPN. They begin this week. For more, log on to ESPN.com. Cairo rolls out to Clayton at shortstop, and that brings up Eli Marrero, who's now in right field. Cairo's now at second base.
We were talking about DeJean earlier. There are a lot of managers. I remember Davey Johnson when he was managing us with the Reds. He did not want to bring his closer in the ball game just to get some work in. Because
had to be a closed situation.
Had to be a closed situation, and I mean, you basically had to beg to get into the ball game and convince him that you needed some work, because his philosophy was, well, what if I need you 3 or 4 days in a row and I brought you in yesterday and it was 15-2?
So it's the only way you could even convince him halfway is if you had an off day the next day.
You just had to beg for it.
Clayton getting another chance. This one much easier as he throws across the diamond to get Marrero. And now Kerry Robinson, who came in to play left field, will hit in Rolen's spot.
And there is some validity to that. I mean, the thing about it is, as a closer, the last thing you want to do is come into a ball game when it's 15-2, because you just don't have that same adrenaline. You're built on an adrenaline situation, a tough situation at the end of the ball game. That's just how you get yourself up, and having to pitch in these ball games is very difficult.
Robinson takes the first pitch ball. How big a part is that? We know what a great setup man, what kind of stuff Klein has, but now with Isringhausen out, how different is that mentality, and is he cut out to do that over a stretch of a month or so?
Well, I think that if you're a career bullpen guy, you want to close. That's where the star is. That's where the money's at. And if you're not the closing guy, then it makes it very difficult.
Well, he doesn't have to worry about it today. He's just got to get 3 more outs. Tony La Russa's team with 3 ground ball outs that inning still has a 15-2 lead. We're back at Miller Park for day game. The Cardinals nursing a 15-2 lead, but they want to see if Steve Klein can get a little bit of work. Funny, we should talk about the guy, and here he comes in a non-save situation.
And I think that and I was saying this before we took the break, I think that every guy that's in the bullpen would love to have an opportunity to close, simply because that's where the star's at. That's where the money's at. I mean, and a lot of guys, that's where the attention's at in the bullpen is finishing ball games and getting saves. There's no real statistical information except for holds every once in a while and a low ERA that gives you any type of credit as to how your year went other than saves out of the bullpen.
So Orlando Palmeiro is into right field now as Tony makes yet another change. Orlando giving a souvenir to the fans up there in the right field bleachers. And I wonder if he's gotten his ring yet. Angels got theirs in the second day of the season. Pretty amazing rock they got too, as they usually are. But Orlando is a guy they picked up. They also picked up Alex Ochoa, but they sold him to Japan. They almost got the entire outfield bench of the world champs to bolster their bench.
I bet he's got it.
Clayton chops one deep in the hole. Delgado got it. So Clayton got all 3 chances last inning in the top of the 9th, and now he rolls out to short himself.
Klein throws in a fastball here that runs away from Clayton, pulls off the ball just a little bit. Delgado with a nice catch and a nice throw. It's the one thing about the difference between playing second base and shortstop is you can have the same type of glove, but in order to play shortstop, you've got to have a better arm than what you have at second base in order to make that throw that we saw Delgado make right there.
Amazing versatility for this Cardinal team. The guy who pulled it in over there at first base is Marrero, a guy who's known as a catcher, started in center field today, played right, and now he's over at first base.
We were talking about Steve Klein and pitching at the end of the ball game. A lot of guys making that transition, instead of going out and pitching the same as they would in the 8th inning, they try to be somebody else in the 9th. They try to do too much, try to add too much to their breaking ball, to overthrow their fastball, trying to be, in their mind, a prototypical closer instead of just pitching and getting 3 outs. And the guys that usually end up doing that are the guys that don't last in that 9th inning role too long.
Pitching coach Dave Duncan looking on. You can tell it's only April 16th. Klein's hat looks almost new. Palmeiro gets a chance, and the ball kind of sunk on him, and he makes the catch as Larry Young signals it was not a trap. So Keith Ginter flies out to right on a tricky play. As the season goes along, Steve Klein's hat will look like something you found out of the gutter.
You watch Palmeiro right here coming in on this ball. I think part of it is when you're playing in an indoor ballpark like this, a lot of time the positioning of the lights will be low enough so that the angle of the baseball when it comes into the outfield, a lot of times it'll blind the fielder that's out there, and you see diving catches and different types of catches like that. You see the lights there a lot of times when the ball comes a certain angle as you're coming in, and we saw Cairo do that earlier in the ball game. It's very difficult, and part of that is coming out here during batting practice and working on taking balls off of the bat during BP to see where the light banks are, and you can prepare for that when the game starts.
One of the disadvantages of having played for the world champs last year, he's not used to this ballpark, and especially it's much different in the afternoon than it is, at different times of day. Alex Sanchez been on a couple of times. He got thrown out stealing to set a tone right off the bat after he singled his first time up. There's Klein's hat in his April condition. By the time you get to the postseason, you can barely see the STL on the bill of that thing. Looks like Delgado got him. The Cardinals end up taking 2 out of 3. And they will end the road trip having won 5 out of 9 with a 15-2 demolition of Milwaukee. We'll be back to wrap things up, tell you how St. Louis did it, and get you ready for our next programming here on ESPN when we return. 15 runs, 16 hits, and an error, and the Brewers get demolished by St. Louis, 15-2. Gary Miller and Jeff Brantley with you back here on Day Game here in Mike Matheny called this game. It wasn't too hard to call once Matt Morris got that kind of a lead, especially after Matt Morris went deep. Mike Matheny joins us now, and pretty good return after last night's loss to Milwaukee. Mike, Matt Morris gets his first win of the year. What was it like once you guys started piling on this team?
Well, I tell you what, we've had a lot of trouble scoring for Matt this year, and he's done so well for us. Took us into the ninth inning against Houston in his last start, and we really couldn't get anything going offensively. But it was good to see I get him a little breathing room, and actually that's a pretty tough position for a guy to pitch in as well. You don't know to be over aggressive, but Matt stayed with his game, made his pitches, and kept giving us a chance.
Mike, everybody knows how great a mind that you have behind the plate and the job that you do defensively. How much easier is it to hit early in the season when your legs are fresh as it is hitting in September?
Well, I don't think hitting's easy anytime, but it's one of those things where you do feel a little bit better early in the season. You got the cooler weather, and you can kind of keep your legs underneath you. And right now, it's just the difference of seeing the ball and trying to ride it out as long as I can.
Well, Mike, congratulations on the win. You head home now, having won 5 out of 9 on this road trip, and they're tied for first at the moment in the Central Division. And Matheny is just a few points under 400, Jeff.
That's right.
To his teammate Jim Edmonds. So congratulations to Mike Matheny and the Cardinals, who win it today 15-2. A reminder coming up next on ESPN is Around the Horn with our good buddy Max Kellerman. Are you ever going to be on that show?
I don't know if I'm going to be on that show ever or not, but I like watching the Cardinals today. They play a great ball game.
15-2 is the final as they blow them out with 16 hits, and Matt Morris picks up his first win of the year, and Scott Rolen hit a couple of 2-run homers. Matheny knocked in 3 runs with a double and an RBI single. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For more, log on to ESPN.com. For Jeff Brantley and our entire ESPN crew, I'm Gary Miller saying so long from Milwaukee. Stay tuned. Around the Horn with Mad Max is next.